billions, billion, trillions, trillion, million, billion, 400 billion suns, billion, trillion, billion, trillions of orbiting snowballs, billion, trillions, million, billion, billion, millions, million, billion, millions, billion, 4 billion-year-old tree. Tens of billions. I have trillions, billions, billion, trillions, billion, billions, million, trillion, millions, millions, billion years, 100 million. It took nature hundreds of millions of years to evolve a bacterium, and billions of years to make a grasshopper. Billions, trillion, billion kilometers from the sun. Saturn 1.5 billion, Uranus 3 billion, and Neptune 4.5 billion kilometers. Billion other galaxies, each of which contains something like 100 billion, million, tens of billions of years in the far future. Billion of them. Millions or billions, billions of G's. Billions, million, tens of millions of degrees. Billions, quadrillion, billions, billions,
What's going on, people? Can everyone hear me? Let someone just type in the in the chat if they can hear me. Wow, this is really weird. I don't like this big full screen thing. We got to change that. Come on, man, help me. There we go. Not mine. I don't know who did it. I found it a while back, and can it? Yeah, MS said yeah. Pretty cool though. I thought that'd make a new. I thought I'd use that or the didgeridoo next time. I'll open with the didgeridoo, which is good old Don Pettit. And so, yeah, it's just me tonight. So it'll probably be a short podcast unless someone wants to come on and give their testimony, right? Which if anyone wants to join and kind of give their flat earth testimony, right? That's what it's about. You're more than welcome. But the last few episodes, we kind of went deep down the, the biblical testimony road, right? And those of you who know me know that I'm on a religious journey. It seems to be getting stronger every day. Every day I watch more scripture. Someone turned me on to Kingdom in Context, and I'm absolutely loving Sean Griffin. Holy cow. Never seen anyone that knew the Bible like this guy. I mean, yeah, he's the flat earth version of, what Kent Hovind used to be, or Ken Ham, something like that. But I don't want to make, so, I want to make sure that the show doesn't become about that. I say the show, the live stream, just to kind of let you guys know, the live stream was about, it was supposed to be to normalize talking about True Earth. That was my goal. And I just wanted to normalize that, right? I wanted people to come out and share their testimony of like how they got here, why they believed in it, maybe what questions they had, like I could field Q&A. But JT, yeah, JT, you might have brought him up, man. You may have. It seems like you mentioned him before. But let me go through some of these comments real quick. Let me just say hi to everybody. So Mr. Nick, Frank Goodman, Gilbert D. That seems like a new one. Don't remember that one, maybe. Ona Plain. Run Boston Bear. This JT. What up? Fam. WP Preach. He did say billions and trillions and millions and billions. Wendell Walton. Frank Goodman. I think Patrick Stelly. Southeast Texas. All right. Thomas Morgan. Sweet. Got a lot of familiar faces in. Yeah, all that is from one video by Carl Sagan. You know, whatever I can't remember the name of that series he did, that cosmology series. But all those millions and billions and trillions are just edited from that one video or series he did. But if anyone wants it, send it to me. If anyone sees anything they ever want, just email me, right? Like I'm all about communication. If you've ever emailed me and asked for my number, I give it out. You can call me. I love talking flat earth. I love talking scripture. And I don't want anyone to take it wrong that I don't want to. And I look back over the last two videos, and as much as I love learning scripture, and I do, believe me, I can't quote anything, right? So I'm just like, as soon as it goes down scripture road, all I can do is observe. So again, the reason my reasoning behind this was, let's talk true earth, right? Like that's what it was about. Kent Washington. All right. So if anyone wants to, let me know. Hey, let me 1 second. Let me send out this link. If anyone, I'm just going to go ahead and post it in the chat. If anyone wants to join me and share their true earth story, you can. 1 second. How do I? Oh, that's great. Shoot. Hold on. Give me 1 second here. Well, maybe not. I'm not sure how to send out the 1 second, Frank. In Restream, it doesn't really tell me how. Just give me a second. I'm looking for it, guys. 1 second. How the heck do I send out? Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. Oh, this is easier than I thought. I never knew this was here. There we go. Anyone wants to join, as long as the intent is to talk about your journey, jump on and share your journey. Wow, that's fast. Got Frank Good. How are you, Frank?
Hey, Bobby, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I kind of see you from the chin up, but yeah, I hear you good.
I don't have a headset. Is this sound messed up?
It's got like a ring to it. Let me know if anyone in the chat. It just not bothering me. I mean, it doesn't sound as good as my mic, but it's doable. It's doable. I don't think it's like, it's not annoying. I think we can talk like that. But if you ever get the chance, get a headset, and it definitely helps. It makes the sound so much better. All right, JT, you take care, man. But yeah, we can do this. It's not that bad. It's like a little tinny, right? But doable.
No, I gotta fix the audio. It'll never work, Bobby. I'm getting what I say 5 seconds later, it comes back on the echo.
Yeah, that's going to happen. Play with that for a minute, Frank. I'm going to just rejoin if you can clean it up a little bit, or because I've got
Oh,
I've got a
okay.
Glenn on. What's that?
Try it now, Bobby.
Here.
I had both windows open. Is everything okay now?
Yeah, that's actually a lot better. That's like
I
that's much
I
better.
had your original video and the join window open, so I was getting a double. There's about a 5-second delay on what you're saying to everybody else.
All right. Well, so Frank, you've been on before. Do you go back? You've got two names there. You got Willis Butts and Frank Goodman. You want to?
Let me explain. Google a couple years ago killed Willis Butts as a YouTube user, so I can't log in as Willis Butts. I use that most of the time on Facebook and stuff. So I made an alternate account. We're fighting a spiritual war that's just unbelievable, and it's going right over 90-something% of the people, goes right over their heads. They don't even know what's going on. It's like you're walking out on a World War I battlefield and said, let's have a picnic right here in no man's land. And they don't even notice there's bullets and artillery shells going over their heads, and you try to tell somebody and they look at you like you are some kind of alien. That you're the crazy person because you're you're telling me that this stuff that I've been told all my life is not real, and how the heck can that be? You must be out of your mind, because the reality is obviously what we've been told all of our lives. I'd like to say that since I talked to you a few days ago, that I have done a lot more Flat Earth. I found a really good group, a very active group, Flat Earth 2017. And when you post stuff in there, unlike everywhere else I go, where I get a reach of like 25 people, I've had hundreds of people react to stuff that I put out there, and it's like, it's so uneven out there, the playing field. So anyway, the Flat Earth stuff, I looked at some of your stuff, and I was originally on 9/11. I've collected a whole bunch of stuff on that. Then it came to NASA. And after NASA, I kept seeing all this Flat Earth stuff. I said, well, I'm going to stay away from that because that discredits my NASA stuff, right? Until I started digging into it and I started looking at stuff, and I said, this is crazy. All of the assumptions that we made. Why does NASA have no pictures of Earth that are real? They're just drawings that basically computer animated. So I started, looking at it, and all of the reasons people believe that the Earth is round just fall completely apart. There's all kinds of evidence. One of my favorite ones lately, I like to put stuff out there that says there's no way that it's true. I mean, there's no little wrinkle that you can give somebody to say, well, that's just because of this or that, right? I saw one, there's a picture of a flat horizon, and the horizon from that perspective would be, it says, how many sections of completely flat 500-mile horizons does it take to make a ball?
Right.
And so, but there's so much more to it, and it's really exciting because people like you realize that this is not just an accident, that they got this all wrong. I mean, this is intentional, intentionally misleading people, intentionally taking them down a path of materialism and away from their spiritualism, and telling them that the world is just a cruel place. You were born here, you're going to die here, and everything in between hardly means a damn thing, right? That is the message that you get from all of this stuff that we were brought up from the time we could read a cereal box. We're told that this is the way the world is, and the highest thing you can aspire to is to be an astronaut when you grow up. And just the lies on top of the lies, and then you watch the TV. So, the news that we get every day has one common denominator. Why is this story on here? Because it unsettles people, because it makes them uncertain. It makes them worry about what's going to happen tomorrow, the inflation, the war in Ukraine, the Putin, and now China floating a balloon, for God's sake, over our country. And, and it's top secret. Oh my gosh. And so now they're ramping up the war talk. And it's just like you think, wars and rumors of wars all over the place. But it's reaching a fever pitch. I believe it's like a pimple about to pop. And one day we'll wake up and there'll be pus all over the place. And then when we clean it all up, it'll all be over. And we won. We won. We're going to win. And the question I pose to people is, what do you believe? Do you believe the destiny of man is to win or lose? To utopia, dystopia, something in between, or something entirely different? And what is biblical to you, Bobby? Do you think that winning is going to happen? Do you think that man can rise above all the mistakes they ever made, correct them all, remember them all, and come back and fix them all at some point, and stop making mistakes and start living the life that you would call heaven on earth? That is what I believe is true.
Yeah. Well, I believe in, I believe in revelation. So I believe in a resurrection in the end, right? For those people, my biblical stance is that a lot of people have the stance that, oh, we can wake up and change this, right? Like if we wake everyone up, we're going to fix this. And that's not what, biblically we're told, right? My understanding, I watch as much as I can, and I've ingested so much over the last, couple years. I just think that there's this war that's going to happen in the Armageddon, and you have after that New Jerusalem comes down. Like, I believe all that. I really do. I know 5 years ago I would have thought all that was crazy, and it's amazing. It's amazing how much our thought process, our thoughts can change. But yeah, that's what I believe in. I wish, a lot of people, a lot of my friends have the faith that, well, we're going to wake up a lot of people and it's all going to change, and we're going to, they're all going to be put in jail. And I don't think it goes down like that.
You read the first chapter of the book and you say, well, I wonder how it turns out. So read the last chapter. And what is everything in between? It is the progress from the first chapter to the last. And the last chapter says, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, for the old one has passed away. But what does passed away mean? Does it mean, it never says that the old one will be destroyed. Okay, what is the future of man? Even literal interpret. Have we already seen Armageddon? Have we already, you say, oh no, we got to have, a third of the people killed or something like that. We got to have bloodshed. We got to have war. Have we been at war all of our lives? All of us have had a path that leads us right to this moment, and everybody's been through fires in their life. And I can tell you about the ones I've been through, and you can tell me about the ones you've been through. We know that there's no solution coming from materialism. We know that the richest people in the world are isolated as much as the poorest from their spirituality, if they let it happen. That we know that the richest man in the world might not have anything but rags to wear, but if he's got the most spiritual positivity, he's better off than perhaps me and you. So the most spiritual person in the world is probably going to be rated in the long run as the richest. So what is real? Like, how many lessons in the Bible do you have to have that it's harder for a rich man to get to heaven, right? What are they trying to tell you there? That riches are not of this world. What does it avail a man to have everything they want? Look at your celebrities now. Look at how many of the stories come out, and they're like life lessons that are right in front of your face. Here's Taylor Swift. She's always writing about the heartache of her relationships. Does that sound like the happiest person in the world? Or maybe right. She's faking everything. Who knows? But look at celebrity divorces and celebrity heartaches, and look at the total incompetence, stupidity of our leaders in this world. And have they conspired against us? Have they foisted things on us like a pandemic that was total scientific BS is what it was. There was nothing scientific about any of it. And yet we were told all about that. Look at NASA lying to us about a space program that's being created here on Earth and pretend to do all this stuff that they never did. And people believe it like lost sheep. Okay. So what is going on? I mean, when you wake up and you realize that we're surrounded by false things going on, 9/11, what else? If they lied about that and got away with it, how many things in our history are even true? Did they really drop nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? You can look into all that stuff, and I think looking at your videos, just skimming over them, you've already been exposed. Once you start seeing the truth and seeing what's going on, it's like dominoes. One domino falls and it hits the next one, and all of a sudden it's so easy to see the lies because you're looking for them right away. Okay, what's wrong with this story? You look at it and say, that it's going to be wrong to start with, and that helps you find the clues, dig in there, and just and demolish the story. So, and they put a JWST up there, okay, and they show you these pictures, and they show you pictures, and people say, well, they have to be made in outer space. Look how complicated they are. And then you say, well, go out there and Google free space software, and you can get free software and make drawings just like NASA does for $66 million a day. They can make a drawing on a computer. Yeah, I can make one that looks just as good as anything they publish and say it's JWST or Hubble. And but it's so easy now to see what they're lying about, to see that it is lies, and then at a higher level, this is what I believe, that Shakespeare nailed it on the head, that we're all just actors, and that the whole system is going to crash. And when it does crash, it's not even going to resist crashing, because the system itself was set up to crash. And that when we crash it with the truth, then it will crash, and it will be glad that it crashed, because everyone will say, even at the top, even the Bidens and the Trumps and the Walensky's and the Boris Johnsons and all that, they are all in on the joke. I think that it's possible we're just surrounded by a bunch of actors, and the actors are playing their roles, and they're going to play them till the play is over. But when the play is over, there's still a life after the play, and there is no
Frank, let's get Glenn a second here. We'll break this up in like 5 or 10 minute chunks here. So Glenn, sorry about keeping you waiting. I want to give everyone a chance to speak here. So Glenn, tell us a little. First off, I want to say, is that a background or is that your actual office? I can't hear you. Unmute.
Is that better?
Yeah, now I hear you. I don't see you now.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. What's video? Hold on. Video. There we go. Back again.
Yeah, much better.
Cool.
Yeah, it looks like your actual background. I just wanted to say I have office envy if that's your office. It's a gorgeous looking office there.
Oh, it's a study. Yeah. So that's my den, basically.
Nice.
I'm just curious why I'm blocked on your channel.
Not sure.
In the live chat.
Did you in the live chat?
Yeah, I've put plenty of comments in the chat, and I've asked people to tag me.
Let me see. Hold on.
So
Let me see. Hold on. Let me just see. 1 second. Yeah. I don't know how it would have happened, but give me 1 second. It would have been intentional if it happened. Unless you were unless you were just throwing out it would have been unintentional.
Definitely not. I've had a respectful conversation, and I think my comments are hidden on the channel as well. So I posted a message about the GPS accuracy of 300 meters at 55 degrees latitude. That sounds wrong. Project Echo in one of your videos a while back.
All right.
Yeah, I have you blocked me?
Oh, so
And
you're a globe Earth proponent, shall we say?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what are your arguments? Let's just do one at a time, real quick.
Oh, sure. My main one. Actually, I'll share a screen. 1 second. There's my little thing. 1 minute. Where are they? Let's do that one first. All right. I don't have very long though, because I did wait window. That one. Here we go. So I'll share that one, which hopefully you can broadcast. There we go. This is my favorite argument because I've done it myself. So again, if I'm standing at the top of the mountain with a known elevation and I point a theodolite at another mountain of known elevation at a known distance, I can use the globe to predict what that angle should be. And I was wondering whether you can. And if you cannot, I'm wondering whether that means that I know something that you don't.
I don't know. I don't work with theodolites.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay. It's relatively simple geometry. Like, would you be able to do some geometry to make a prediction for flat Earth?
I mean, I passed geometry in college. I'm sure I could.
Can we do that? Let's do that.
I don't have any want to do that right now. I didn't come on. I didn't bring you on to do geometry. I'm not here to do math. I'll just say that I don't work with theodolites. I don't know what if that sells you, great, that's fine. If that's all you need to be sold, we'll disagree on that. I don't think that means anything.
It's a measurement of curvature though.
Great. What are you measuring? Are you measuring light?
I'm looking at a mountain.
Okay. How do you see that mountain? What do you see it with?
Through the theodolite, through the telescope.
Okay. And are you looking at light? Is that what you're seeing? I'm just curious.
Everything you see is
right.
light.
Right. It's light. Right. Exactly. Yes. So we have these arguments about light, day and night and day and night, right? Like if we show you a black swan event where it defies the globe, you go, well, that's refraction. So how do you know the light you're looking at through a theodolite is not refracted? How do you know that for a fact?
It is refracted.
Well, there you go.
And see the second paragraph. It says, make any assumptions about the atmosphere that you require. So make any assumptions about refraction.
Well, let's change. Assumptions. Right. Yeah. Can you make assumptions with gravity? Gravity's
not relevant in this at all.
Well, we're going to do a 1-for-1. I've given you this one. I've said I don't have it. You're up on me by one. Now, since you got to choose your argument, let me choose my argument. Right? Can you make assumptions with gravity?
I can assume that things fall at 9.8 meters per second squared in a vacuum.
You're talking about little g, right? The agreed upon average of little g, right? Yeah, we're not talking about little g. I'm talking about big G. Well, I'm talking about not Newtonian, but I'm talking about Einsteinian. Can you make any predictions with Einsteinian gravity?
I'm not up to date with that at all. All I rely on is acceleration of 9.8.
Right. Little g is just an observation. That's all it is. Yeah. Okay. So the agreed upon average of little g. But all of the predictions you all are supposed to make, they fail miserably. And that's called the three body problem, right? So the only place that gravity, so I'm just gonna one up your thing right here. So as far as your measurements, I just say refraction, right? Because that's what you all use every time we show you. You use this, and actually I'll one up this with the black swan. I'll just say that we see things that you absolutely cannot see on a spherical Earth. And we do that all day long, all day and night. I've got thousands of impossible photographs, and we even do that in infrared. So, but now if we shift gears and we go to gravity, right? We have a solar system that cannot exist by the equations that you all call gravity, right? It just can't. It can't do it, right? Like it instantly goes. It instantly goes chaotic. Instantly, if you put it into a computer simulation, it instantly goes chaotic.
You're talking about the three-body problem, right?
Right. Yes, the three-body problem.
That's just it's a mathematical difficulty. I don't understand
It's
why
not
it's
a difficulty. It's an
possible.
impossibility. I've broken it down into I've looked for every single solution that's ever been proposed. It's not a difficulty. It's an impossibility. If you can solve it,
it's a mathematical impossibility. Yeah.
Let's solve it right now. Just tell me what the solution is.
That's a problem with mathematics and our abilities with mathematics. It says nothing about
Well, you just gave me a mathematical problem, did you not?
Yeah.
Okay, that was a mathematical problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, does math solve things? Does math prove things? Is that what you're saying?
If I can make an accurate prediction for this, right, and you can't, is it fair to conclude that I know something that you don't?
No, it's fair to assume that you can assume something.
What are the assumptions in this?
I don't.
You cut out.
Mathematically, if I pull out a black swan right now,
right,
you're this little evidence right here that you think is your hoorah moment. My black swan has more credibility than that. This is just nothing. This is nothing but a paragraph. Okay. So I'm not going to hold your mathematical equation to a higher scientific proof than what I can show you with the black swan, right? That's real. That's real right there.
Right. These measurements are also real.
Right. But math doesn't prove anything. We already agreed on that. You just said that yourself, right? I'm quoting you. I'm paraphrasing you.
Yeah. Let's talk about black swan. What was the observer height for black swan?
It's Dr. John D. We can watch it if you want to watch it, if you want to break it down.
Oh, no. It's actually a foot, and it's BMLSB 69 if we're talking about the same black swan.
Right. Probably the one where he's out at the wind farm and he sees over 10 miles at 1.5 feet off the ground.
That sounds like Dr. John D rather than
Dr. John D. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. It probably doesn't matter. All right. The thing with observations really close to the surface is that refraction is very unpredictable.
There you go. Right. Yeah. You don't have to say anymore. It's a refraction, right?
No.
Right.
There's always refraction, but close to the surface, it's very unpredictable. And I have the data to show that. Right.
Well, yeah, I know, because you have the data. You have all these impossible photos, and that's the data. Just like Dr. John D's is the data, right?
That's not the data. The data is measurements of the refractive gradient. That's the data. The refractive gradient is very unpredictable close to the surface because there's heat exchange between the ground or the water and the air above it, right? So that heat exchange causes extreme temperature gradients in either direction. So close to the surface, you might have extreme upward refraction or extreme downward refraction.
Right. When what do you do how did you become a master of this? I'm just curious. What gave you your credentials, how are you the expert here? I'm just curious.
Studying it.
So I don't.
Yeah. Don't what?
What makes your opinion of this, and I've studied it as well. I'm just curious, what makes your opinion of this superior to mine?
I've studied it. I have the data.
I've seen the data. I'm just not. What I'm saying is I'm not impressed with your data.
I haven't shown you any data.
I've seen it. Believe me, I've seen it. I don't, because I honestly don't want to give you the time. I just.
No, fine.
It's not. The channel's intent wasn't for globe Earth proponents. That wasn't the intent.
Yeah, that's fine. If you want me to leave, that's okay. I've got to go very shortly anyway.
Yeah.
But I have the data, and I don't think you've seen it because you seem to be implying that my data consists of photos. Is that correct?
If it were one thing, here's the thing, Glenn. I don't know. Honestly, right from the get-go, I think I would just have to assume you're controlled opposition, right? Like that's just it's just, you can laugh. I'm just telling you my opinion. I have the right to believe that, right?
Yes.
But there's a preponderance of evidence. We don't look at one thing. Like let me ask you, Glenn, if I show you National Geographic and PBS and multiple documentary companies faking the curve and faking a 24-hour Antarctic sun and faking a vacuum chamber test, clearly faking them, right? Multiple times, not just once.
PBS clearly,
right?
Manipulated.
So if we were on a sphere, would you need to fake it? Would a national broadcasting company need to fake it? Would you need to?
I hit them up about that years ago and said, why the F are you doing this?
Why? Yeah. Okay. Well, when you figure that out, come back to the show. right? When
they didn't respond.
when you figure that out, because there's a problem, right? I also have about 40 now debunked Antarctic sun videos. I can send you a playlist of just,
Sure.
I came across about 20 more today. I was like so happy. I had no idea. I got it, but man, just to add to my collection. And I sat there and went through each and every one. Why are they constant? Why can't they just take a video of a 24-hour sun? Why do they have to? And why are they being faked from military installations, Glenn? Why is that?
I've just posted in the private chat on Restream.
I see it. Yeah, I see it.
My favorite Antarctic 24-hour sun.
Okay.
I would love to see what you think is wrong about that. Not today.
Well, okay. So where is it taken from? Let me just ask you.
77 degrees south, something like that.
So, okay. So is it a well-known military base?
Scott Base. There you go. Scott Base.
Is it it's from Scott Base? Like can you look at it and see Scott Base, or are you just looking? What are you looking at there?
Literally see the buildings of the base. Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a look at it and get back with you. But I've seen several Scott Base. I've already seen several debunked. As a matter of fact, that might be the one. Let me just go click on it and see if it's the same one I've seen.
Can I ask what state you're in? Just
Georgia.
What's your biggest airport? Atlanta?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I haven't lived in Georgia
Has to be
very long, but yeah, it's for sure. It's Atlanta.
All right. Let me find Georgia's data. One sec. KATL probably. KATL.
This doesn't even show a sun. It just shows a sun crawl in front of an unmoving. It doesn't even.
No, it's a 360 video. You can actually scroll around.
Yeah,
this
show a 24-hour sun.
Yeah. It does if you actually scroll around the video.
Yeah, I mean.
Very quick dismissal, though. Well done.
This is a very different sun that I've seen in all the other suns. This is like an orb-like sun.
Okay.
Yeah, all the other suns I look at have rays coming out of it. It's weird. Very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll look at this. I haven't seen this one, but tell you just right away, I can tell you the sun looks very different from the sun I've seen in any 24-hour sun video.
Okay. I'm sure you'll find a reason to reject it. I mean, you wouldn't be a flat earther if you didn't. So anyway, on screen right now is the data for the refractive gradient.
Glenn, look, I want to here. Yeah, that's great. I'm saying something. If that video were real, there wouldn't be 40 fake ones, right? It's really simple. I mean, that's just logic, right? Do you possess that logic to acknowledge that, or no? You're going to deny that.
I'm yet to see a fake one.
If there's, you've said you've never seen a 24-hour Antarctic sun faked.
Faked, not faked. I know the one by Anthony Powell is looped. That doesn't make it fake.
Oh, how does it end with the same clouds as it started with?
Yeah, it's looped. The cut is like 30 seconds into it. Right? And
if the sun it ends where it started, right? You can't do that. At some point in time, there has to be a cut of the clouds. There has to be. Yes. Anyone with a brain knows this, right? It doesn't exist.
Yes.
It's not there.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Cut's about 30 seconds into it. It does.
It doesn't. The end doesn't meet anywhere. It does not. It does not. Glenn, you've absolutely send me your evidence, but I can tell you now, you're wrong on that. You're wrong.
No, I understand that in the documentary, it ends and begins like with the same cloud structure, right? So
yes.
You've got the cloud structure is the same, and then around here.
Yes, and you follow the sun. Down here. You follow the sun the entire time, right? So that's the frame of reference, if you will, and we follow it around. At no point in time towards the end do the clouds ever unsync. It just goes right back into the beginning.
Right. That's not where the cut is. The cut is like way around.
It's before the cut. Before the cut, it sinks back up.
Around. Do you understand that? How else can I explain
it? Even if you were right and you're not, it's also there's multiple proofs that it was faked. Multiple.
About 30 seconds in, that's where the start is, right? 30 seconds after you see it in the documentary, that's where the start is. It loops around.
Yeah. So you're saying the start, they
clouds.
Started it with the end. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
like you're saying
they started in the middle. Yes.
And then came back to the middle. Is that what you're saying? They started in the middle and came back to the middle.
Yes.
Right? How they do that? How can I do that?
Just loop it. You start. I need to draw it. I need to draw it.
You don't. It just doesn't make sense, right?
And it's very simple.
Seen more than it, again, debunked. I've seen plenty debunked, plenty. And you can lie to yourself. Look, I mean, if you want to lie to yourself, lie to yourself. We don't. Everyone here knows the truth. You're in a group of people, and they've all seen the truth. Glenn, if it bothers you, just don't come to the channels. If the truth bothers you, let me ask you something, Glenn. Hold on, Frank. Hold on. Give me just a second. I want to ask you one thing. Do you believe in God?
No.
There you go. There you go. There's the problem.
There you go. Feel free to dismiss me then. Feel free to dismiss everything I say.
Yeah.
There you go. Just before I go, hello to live music. Yes, I have had my 5th thingo in the shoulder. And hello, Wendell. I'm friends with Dan, by the way. And Pugsley, I would love to talk to you about theodolites because he reckons he's measured the angle to the moon. I've got to go. I'm unsure if you would like me to come back or whether you just don't want Globers to come on and have a go.
I mean, you are. Email me. We'll set up a time. I mean, like if it's going to be a debate, I'd like for it to be a debate. I don't, that wasn't my intent tonight, right? I mean, if you want to set up a time where you can come in and debate me, then just email me. But I'm not really interested. With my intent tonight, right?
Yeah, that's good. All good. I got to go. Yeah, I'll email you. Cheers.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks. Take care, Glenn. Have a good night.
Hey, Bobby.
Hey, sorry about that.
Very important there. It went right over the head there. But why would NASA lie about anything if they weren't lying about everything? So you have done many videos on NASA obviously lying. Why would they lie to us and show us stuff that's obviously fake if they were doing it? And if they're lying about what that is, why does anybody give them credibility on anything they do? And then if you look at it, there's not a thing they've ever done that could not be done on Earth and faked as if it was in space. And at the same time, they never do the stuff that you would do if you were really doing space, like take a rocket from the ground all the way into orbit, show you all the stars, show you going up 100 and something miles up where there's nothing out there except the universe to look at. Never do they turn their cameras around. Why? Because they're in a studio. They're on a computer. They never, why would they lie? That would be the first thing you would put at the heading of a video. Why does NASA lie about stuff? Does anybody remember way back when they launched Artemis 2 months ago? That was not 50 years ago. That was 2 months ago. And if you look at that, I've collected this stuff. This is utter nonsense. You've got a moon that's just almost featureless gray. When did that happen? And this is in their official video with NASA logo on it. This is Artemis, the lady talking over the video. This is not some construction by a truther, a flat earther, or anything. This is them showing us how stupid their videos are. And they're doing it on purpose because they're just sitting there laughing their butts off at anybody that believes this stuff. They probably sit there at night smoking a joint, watching their own work. And
right. Well, it's funny. And one of the frustrating things is theodolites are not cheap, right? And to come at me with a theodolite
you tell me what are you talking about? Theodolite? I've never heard of it.
They give you distances and measure angles. It's a surveying piece of equipment, but it's a modern surveying piece of equipment. They're very expensive, and most people don't have money to throw away, to spend on a theodolite. I've made my share of investments, right? Like I've bought some gyroscopes and I bought my P1000, and there's only so much you can spend at one time. You got to kind of work your way up to it. But a theodolite's usually like one of the later things you would get into, and I may buy one eventually, but it's not fair because if I haven't tested with a theodolite, I can't have the argument with you. I'd be lying, right? So you're going to come out. I don't like the fact that you come out with a theodolite when I haven't had the chance to play with a theodolite, right? You like come out with some evidence that we can use some common ground.
They want to put you out into something that you're having to make statement, and then they say, "Well, listen, you're off base. You don't know what you're talking about, and I've got the, you're not as intelligent as me because you don't know the tech." They want to. It's like the argument on a meme that somebody makes a statement that the Saturn rocket was 360 feet long, and they say, "No, look at the specs. It was 356." Okay, you have no idea what you're talking about when you say it's 360, and they make this little piece be, oh, but you're already discredited. You already had the length of the Saturn rocket incorrect. That's what they want to do. So don't take the bait. Just say, like you said, you don't like this, go to a group where they praise NASA, where they worship it. They get down on their knees and say, I love you, NASA. I will follow you to the ends of to the gates of hell, NASA. Worship NASA all you want. Get the hell out of my sight because I got work to do. There's plenty of people out here that are ready to know what's going on.
Yeah, I think you have to look at everything as a whole, right? If you sit there and look at one argument, you can almost what's the word I'm looking for? Hold on. You can almost come up with an excuse for any argument. They've got some great minds working on their end. They've got some great mathematicians. They've got some great double thinkers. It's when you look at the argument as a whole that it becomes evident. And then you start looking outside the argument and you start looking at the elites and the actors and the politicians, and you start to pull everything together. And then all of a sudden everything just drops in like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Everything just fits perfectly.
So tell me, what's your experience with the P1000? You went out and bought one. What did it tell you? What did you learn from that?
That you can see really, really far. I mean, you can see well farther than 3 miles, right? Like I'm 6'4", but it's super easy to get 10 and 20 miles out and I live right by the ocean, so I can go out and take photos of boats and little islands sitting up. I also, there's all kinds of islands along our coast, not all kinds, but several islands along our coast there. And there's plenty of, but celestial photography is another direction you can go in. You can photograph the stars and zoom in on the stars and see the true nature of the stars. So,
and what, I've seen people say that what they show us on the TV or about the stars, when you look at them, the planets and the stars don't look like what they're telling us they look like on TV. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, there's some stars, and this is a place where I had a friend on here the other day. You heard him. He's Joe Hill. Well, I call him a friend now. That's good. Thomas Morgan brought him into here, and I'm really appreciative because I have great admiration for Joe Hill just because I like what he does. But there's only one of the very few things I kind of don't see the same as him is there's stars with cutouts like Sirius and Arcturus. And I had heard the argument years ago. I'd heard the argument that, well, that's the center of a telescope has this apparatus in it that makes a hole with a cross, right? And I could buy that if that hole moved with the camera, right? Like you'd have a cross and it'd be in the center, but that's not the case. Like they'll sit there and do this, but that hole and crosses stays perfectly inside of the star. And I can show some of those. And actually I will, if you want to, I'm sure you've got something to say and I can share that video. 1 second. Let me get back to where I was here, but let me share some of these. I'll show you what I mean. So if you haven't seen these, like this is Stand by. Now look at this circular cutout in Arcturus. And it's not just, this is many people make the same, they get the same video when they zoom in on Arcturus, right? If you use a high zoom, you zoom in on Arcturus, you're going to get this cutout. Now here's right now, the star, they're not moving the camera. It's staying centered. But also look how the circle's getting smaller and bigger, right? But let's get a different one. 1 second. Here is Betelgeuse. I'm going to zoom in on Betelgeuse. Now look, it's moving across the screen, right?
Right.
Now see that it's got these divots, We got someone jumping in. Oh, 1 second.
So,
hey, Greg, give us one. Just finish. Let me wrap up on this video. But you see how, cool. Now the only reason I disagree with, I know that there is in some telescopes that apparatus. And honestly, I wouldn't doubt it if they put the apparatus into the telescope, that it's like a featureless apparatus so that they could explain this away, right? Like, but look at it. It's growing and shrinking and it is staying perfectly positioned with this star. It's growing and shrinking in size and it's moving with the star. And there are multiple people have captured this. Like many people have captured this. It's a common thing to capture. It's not a one-off, and it always moves in the exact star, right? And you have stars like this too, a divot in the middle, whether it's moving across the screen. So I'll probably do an in-depth video on stars. Here's Sirius again. See this is that same exact pattern. It's missing a chunk out of the right, and it's got essentially a cross through it. And it doesn't have to be in the center of the screen. It's to the left of the guy's screen. And if he moves it from left to right, the divot doesn't move and the crosshairs don't move. They stay as if it's part of that object. It moves perfectly. So that's why I have a problem with that thought process. And it's common. If you zoom in, you'll get the same results if you zoom in on Sirius or Arcturus. So yeah, we might come back to that. We just had someone pop in. We had a Greg pop in. Let me stop my screen here real quickly. Greg, what are you about, man? Where are you from?
Houston.
And are you a true?
I'm here in Space
all right,
City.
Space. All right. Are you a true earther?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. That's a relief. All right, yeah. So do you mind sharing a little bit about your journey? Kind of whatever you want to share.
I'm long-winded, so let me see what I can say and just cut me off. I guess it started in 2005 with September 11th, and a friend of mine had sent me a clip of what was the one? Anyway, it was a section from one of the videos that talked about the Pentagon, and that got me questioning things. And then I just started digging from there. So by 2006, I was already active. We had an activist group here and in Houston that we were pretty active out in the streets a lot. I used to go over the bridge with some signs that I've done literally hundreds of times over the years. It kind of died off in 2012. We would go downtown and hand out tons and tons of fact cards and whatnot. Had some speakers come. Of course, my opinion changed since then. Like I had driven, Richard Gage to Houston from an event in Austin to here. And of course, now my opinion about him has changed. Same with William Rodriguez. I drove him from there to here. And it's interesting looking back as I became more aware of what was going on and seeing just what frauds these people are. Like I'm of the belief now that the towers were basically empty. William Rodriguez, and I don't mind saying this too, I don't think I'm giving away any secrets, but and sorry, I go off on a lot of tangents. So one of the things that I've been talking about him, with him about on the way from Austin to Houston was he was loving the attention and all the women he was getting out of this. I didn't feel that he was in it for truth. He wasn't passionate about digging for truth. Richard Gage, same kind of thing. And I got to, I spent a good bit of time with him. He had come back. There was like a spinoff group from our group that were the people that were acting like shills to me. And then they had him back for the second meeting. And that's when I approached him with something. I was involved with a few people that did what was called the nanothermite challenge. And they were explaining how this whole thing, this nanothermite stuff was just nonsense. It couldn't bring down those towers like that. It wasn't. And I think it's because of this group. Mark Hightower was the main one that wrote it. But there were a few of others that were involved on these phone conferences with him. And so I brought that to Richard Gage, and of course he wouldn't address it. The next time I saw him, I brought up the no plane stuff. So anyway, I went through a whole lot of stuff. September 11th was really big for me. Early on, I was digging into the moon landing. We were talking about the fluoride, about the chemtrails early on. You know, all the kind of stereotypical kind of things you might think you'd come across. I was talking about vaccines early on. I mean, I've got, you know, early on I was in, because I was in it at the time I was, into Alex Jones. I'd met him a couple times in Austin doing some stuff. And that's one thing that's hysterical that I certainly wouldn't rule out this whole thing of him being
Bill Hicks.
Bill Hicks.
I wouldn't rule it out either. I mean, I'm just going to say it. I know people are going to laugh. I think he is. The teeth line up, the mole marks line up, everything lines up, his voice lines up. He talks in a fake voice. That's a fake voice. Nobody has that voice, right?
So I will be 49 this year in April. Alex Jones says he just turned 49 in February. I've met the guy in person. He's never looked my age. He's always looked 10 years older than me. And also he was a total jerk back then. Like at this conference in 2007, this couple-day conference there, he kind of kept off on his own, didn't want to have to do with anybody, you know, not what you would expect from somebody who's truly passionate about getting out truth. And there's other little side stories from someone knowing some of the activists back then of how he would screw them over, take their footage, just treat them like crap. And again, I'm sorry, I go off on so many tangents. So anyway,
no, man, I'm right there with you. It sounds like the three of us and probably most of the people in here climbed the same stairway of disbelief, right? But keep going.
And so just kind of rolled on. I got involved with a group here that had been doing a lot of stuff, pro-Palestinian stuff. So that was another thing that I branched off and did, and saw a whole lot of overlap in a lot of the, you know, evildoers. As far as going into the true earth, I don't remember what year it was that I think what first brought it to my attention. I mean, moon landing aside, which was years before, I'd already been like, oh, that's a joke. But I started looking at some stuff about the space shuttle. And I don't hear a lot of people saying that is part of their journey on here, but that was kind of part of it for me. I'm like, wait, this shuttle started doing things. I'm like, oh, that. And
it wasn't a glider. You could hear it land every time. The engine's just screaming in. Right. It wasn't a glider.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why. Yeah, that's why it went away, is because people caught on to that, and they didn't want any more recordings of that. So
remember, they used to fly the jet planes by it so that it would mask the sound of the jet itself.
Yep.
If they were landing.
Yep.
And then it's kind of interesting. So I do video and photography, and there's an event that goes on each year, and I used to be the one in charge of the video for it. And they would have a lot of astronauts speaking at it. And so I would see on stage these astronauts getting up. Like one of the years, they were trying to explain away the water getting into the helmet. And as we were doing this, it was in a hospital setting, and upstairs in another room, they had their space suit that they were doing tests on, trying to figure this out, and it was comical. And somewhere I have this footage, I know somewhere, they had different people get up and they would contradict themselves, be it an astronaut or somebody that worked at this place at NASA, somebody got at this place, and they get up, and I'm like, wait, these things don't quite match. And it was funny. So the first year that I did video for them, I'd been aware of the moon landing. The second year, I was aware that the ISS was fake. And then the third year that I did it for them, I knew the Earth was flat. And at the after party after it, one of the nights, Dr. Ellen Ochoa, she was the director of the Johnson Space Center at the time. And I wish I had a camera and had some balls to say more. I mean, I got some balls to do stuff, but at this time I didn't. I just was, I was kind of hoping I wouldn't lose the job, so I could figure out how to play into it the next year to get some more out of being in that position. And I went up to her and said something to the effect of, how do you feel now that all these people are becoming aware of this heliocentric model being a lie? And it was just me one-on-one for a second. She, of course, played dumb. But no, so yeah, the flat earth stuff since 2005. I kind of forget about this, and I'd be embarrassed, I'm sure, to go listen to it. But I was actually on, my friend Sophia Smallstorm had me and Dave Weiss, and I don't know who the other one was on back in 2005. She had us on a call. So it's kind of cool after looking after David Weiss all these years, thinking I was on what might have been his first call with him. But I think even back then I was like, oh no, this dome overhead is nonsense. And it was my very early stages of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is some ego kind of thing, but I think it's kind of cool. I've never said this to anybody in a live stream, but so David Weiss credits Sophia to helping him wake up. He tells his different story of how it happens. And she's told him before, she's like, no, it wasn't me, it was Greg. Because I remember telling her, like, you got to look.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Anyway,
that's cool.
Here I am. And then it played a role in me. I grew up for the first 18 years of my life going to church, took off to Baylor University, which is the biggest Baptist school in the world. And I didn't go there for that, but I got accepted. It was not too far, not too close. And at that time, I decided I was agnostic and that this was all nonsense. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago that, in part because of biblical cosmology, that I started to, there were a lot of other factors, but that's the thing that kind of solidified it, that, okay, I realized that what all these things I've been researching for 15 years, or not quite 15 a decade plus at that time, have in common. They all seem to not just act like what we would call Satanists, but they literally counter biblical verses, scripture, whether it's the tongue out or the hand over the eye or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not attacking other religions. And so it was the true earth that helped bring me back to Christ, or that I should say he used to bring me into his arms.
Yeah.
And so that's where I am today. And on that topic, before I shut up here for a bit, I know it's been brought up here, and I know you talked about bringing your daughter to church, and I think that's great. I have a daughter, and thankfully that I came back to Christ at an age where she was still young enough to not remember before that. And I've been bringing her, and I just encourage you to not give up. I understand walking into a church that has astronauts around, and I hear so often that people dog on churches in this community, like, well, we love God, but he does call us to be in that fellowship. And a lot of people will say, oh no, but fellowship, we can just be with a couple people. But I really think you should be part of a church. My church, are they flat earthers? No. There are a number of them there in my relatively small church. A couple of years ago when I started going, I told them they have no problem. These are the most amazing people. And I look forward to the day that I talk to my pastor and others, more about it. But I would just encourage you to not rule that out. You may not find one in your area. And thankfully, one of my friends that helped bring me back to the church, he was hunting around Houston, looking everywhere. But if there's one out there, I think it's something to be great for you and your daughter to be a part of. And thanks for letting me ramble on for however long.
Yeah. No, before we see Law, I know you just popped in and I want to hear from you. I enjoyed going to church. Don't get me wrong. Like, I enjoy I think those are true. I think a lot of that congregation they're true Christians, right? The problem is I have a hard time with a preacher that's not preaching the truth. Like, it's just hard for me. Like, if I watch someone like Rob Skiba or Sean Griffin or Ken Heidelbrecht or someone like that, these guys are preaching the truth, the true Bible. Like, they're preaching things that we're supposed to know. It's arguably a salvation issue. Maybe not for some of the church, but some it is. And I'm not disagreeing with you, Greg. I'm just giving you my thought process. If I make that okay, that it's the very reason I wasn't a Christian, right? Like, if I had a pastor saying, hey guys, the earth is flat and science is a lie, I might not have turned my back on God when I did as a child, when my parents were taking me to church, because I thought I couldn't reconcile God with the universe and evolution and the Big Bang and all those things that the church was saying, no, it's okay. We can, God's just like just beyond Venus, right? And yeah, there was evolution, but the amoeba turned in, and then God stepped in and it's like, none of it made sense to me. None of that made sense to me. So if there were don't get me wrong, if there were a flat earth church, I would hands down go. And I do watch, like right now, I'm totally addicted to Kingdom in Context. Every moment I get in the car, instantly I turn it on everywhere I go, and I watch it at night. But there is power in going to the church. I went to the church and I got rebaptized in this time of my own volition. And there is a sense of a feeling when you go into church, of congregation, right? I feel like that pastor is intentionally leading people astray. I do. I can't help it. It's just something it's a problem I've got. Maybe. I don't know if it's wrong or right. I don't know.
Well, remember that there's a lot of truths in the Bible, and because they're wrong on what we see as a huge one, doesn't mean that they're like my pastor. I love him to death. I think he knows the word very well. We just finished a couple months back going through all of Genesis. Of course, he didn't. His idea was a firmament. He was like, I don't know what exactly it means. I'm not going to fault him for that. He grew up in this world that we did.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity to share that. You can't just come out with just like anybody, pastor or not.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to fault him for that. I know that the people I'm around are, I've never seen stronger Christians in my life, the most loving, welcoming people that are walking the walk. And they don't talk about worldly things. They might, briefly say, hey, let's pray for, Turkey, or if there's what we know as FAKE, shoot them up, right? Maybe they'll say something about a prayer for them. I don't expect them to be digging into all that and know all of that, but they're not making the focus about that. It's straight out of the Bible. They preach the Bible, even though they have some parts wrong, but then everybody in this community has disagreements on part of it. So anyway, and I appreciate and respect that, but you're not to find a flat earth church.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to the Bible.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to the Bible than that.
No doubt, brother. I know. Believe me, I know.
Yeah, I know you know. Right.
Let's hear from C Law real quick. Sorry about that. And then we'll go back around here, let everyone, but C Law, where are you from? What are you about? Or is it Claw? Is it Claw or is it C Law? I don't hear you. Can't see you.
No.
A little choppy. Try it again.
Test 1, 2, 3. Test
Yep.
1,
There
2,
you go.
3.
Yep. That's good.
I'm from Nashville. Been binging on your videos the past few days. I saw you somewhere you were talking on some other show. I don't remember who it was now. But what made me want to call in was the 24 Antarctica sunlight. I've heard you say, and I've heard many other, prominent flat earthers say there's no 24-hour videos, there's no 24-hour time lapse. And
wait a minute. Wait, of what? Sunlight. Sun or sunlight?
Sunlight. And
no one has a problem with 24 hours of sunlight. There's no flat earther I know that has a problem with 24 hours of sunlight.
Okay, because I spent probably 2 years grabbing all of the daily videos from all the stations down there in Antarctica, because they only have them up for a day and then you can't go back and watch them. So I downloaded them. I wrote a process to download them every day.
Mm-hmm.
They're on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put it here in the private chat if you want. It's a playlist to dozens over 2 or 3 year period, because you only have that about a 30-day period where you can get the 24-hour sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even shorter than that.
Yeah, nobody has a problem with 24 hours of sunlight, though.
Okay.
If you had a 24-hour sun, that'd be impressive. But there's plenty of those too. The problem is they're all faked. Just all the ones that we see are faked.
I'm not saying daylight. I am saying sunlight.
Not sunlight. Right.
Okay.
We don't have a problem with 24 hours of sunlight.
Okay.
That works with the flat Earth model. We've demonstrated that.
I pasted the link in the chat. And I'm not saying go over them here now, because it's a lot of videos, right? Most of the videos are like 1 to 3 minutes because they're time lapsed over 24, or actually, I think they're typically 32 hours time lapse. And some of them overlap. I just put up the videos as they were available from the Antarctic stations. But there are videos. There aren't a lot of them because cloud cover is a problem, right? But there are videos where there are multi-day sunlight, and you can't see it from the perspective of a 360 panoramic. you can see it based on the shadows on the buildings or structures where you can see the shadow go in a complete circle from the sunlight.
Yeah.
So
Jaron has multiple videos on this, like many. He's done like deep dives on this.
yeah,
And I've looked at what he's looked at, what he shared, and I can't find a channel that actually shows. It claims to be 24 hours. It claims that it does, and it's not. It's not actually live video. It's their frames, right? Every so and such, and they just stretch out the frames. Is all they're doing.
Okay,
So
I know what you're talking about with Jaron, and I agree with him on those. For some reason, he banned me from his channel when I called into his show once and said, "Here, check out these links," just like I'm giving you. So I say ban me. I couldn't post any comments anymore. So I'm saying I think it is. I don't know for sure. I think there could be this coffee cup caustic type of thing going on, possibly. Are you familiar with that?
Well, I mean, it's really simple. If it were real, they would just leave on cameras 24 hours a day and they wouldn't be frame shot. Can you send me a camera that's on 24 hours a day in December, February? I think it's February is the longest month. February. Is there a camera where there's a 24-hour feed, live feed in Antarctica?
Okay, so on the restream.io chat on which I'm speaking with you, I've posted a link to the videos.
Okay, no,
they are time lapse, so they're not live stream. I agree.
Right. I'm asking you a simple question. It's just a simple yes, no question. Is there a URL you can share with me right now that is a 24-hour live stream of Antarctica?
I don't know of one.
That's the problem, right?
And I don't know of one in the Arctic either.
And there should be one. I mean,
I believe there's 24-hour sunlight in the Arctic.
There is. Right? You do hear us saying that, right? Like we don't have a problem with 24 hours of sunlight. You're grasping that much, right?
I don't have any. No, I'm not saying that's in dispute here.
Right. There's the model that we've observed using a hemispherical dome, because the dome has an atmosphere, and that atmosphere is largely filled with water, and it acts as a lens. It acts basically like a hemispherical lens, right? And when we take a light and it goes near the outskirts of the lens, the light encompasses the whole dome. And we've demonstrated this multiple times. So on the micro, that's what I like to call it. Just on the micro, we've reproduced this. We don't have a spare planet we can reproduce it on. 24 hours of light is not a problem. If you can't see a problem with them not giving us a real, legit.
I do see a problem. I think it's a big problem.
It is.
I think they are hiding stuff. I think they're hiding the edge of the Earth. When I say the edge, not the fall up, but possibly where the end of our realm ends, right? I think that's why it's done, because they're godless. They believe this points to, creation. When you have creation, you have to have a creator, right? And it screams, a finite realm screams creator, right? Just like, I don't know if that's what turns you to God. With a lot of people, it is with flat earth. But, Dave Weiss, for example, many people have talked about how they were atheists. He's not a Christian. I don't think he has any religious views. I don't think he's Judaistic, but, creation demands a creator, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I will say this real quick. And by the way, thank you for acknowledging that. Like I'm glad we were able to sync up on that right there. I will say this, that it did bring me to the creator, but even if, although I know it's not, I know in my heart, I know in my brain, I have a knowing that the earth is flat. Even if you took that away from me today, if somehow you could take me a spaceship and show me a spherical earth, I know there's a God. It's just once, and what took me there was science. Like once I saw that we had this celestial clock, which is impossible. And then you have concentric star trails. And then you have moons that have this frequency, like the moons around Jupiter have this crazy frequency on a 1, 2, 4 scale. And then you have the size of the moon and sun 400 times
Yeah,
farther
yeah.
away and 400 times larger, and we only see one side of the moon. And I could go on and probably come up with 20 or 30 things where the odds are almost 1,000,000 to 1 on each one of these things. And
Okay.
we have,
Hey,
go ahead.
let me tell you this. Forget probability. Here's another one for you. Uh, these so-called order of the planets, are Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and so on, right?
Yeah.
You can go outside tonight and see Mercury at night. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
not Mercury. See Venus. Venus is the brightest star in the sky tonight, and it shouldn't be visible at night.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard
And
that.
you can. I've watched Venus until 1 a.m. in the morning. Because sometimes globe earthers will say, yeah, you can see it just after the sun goes down, but I've watched it until 1 a.m. in the morning, and then it comes back, just at dawn.
Yeah. And let me share this also, sea law. What's the sea law for? Is it claw or is it sea?
Law.
What is
Cunningham's
it?
law.
Cunningham's law.
Yeah, so that's the sort of the axiom that if you post what's wrong on the internet, you'll get
Get the right answer.
to get the right answer right.
I do that all the time on my Facebook.
Yeah.
So I have a plan in February to go to Ushuaia and try to get proof, right, one way or the other. The problem is I've since spoke with several people, and they say that there's this cloud coverage over Ushuaia it's sinister. It's crazy that you just can't see anywhere. You can't see anything. There's this constant cloud deck over there. I had one friend that said he went there for 2 weeks and all he could see was a cloud deck. That was it.
And there's people who've been to Antarctica as employees too. I've seen their videos, and they say that when they go outside, most of the time it's cloud cover there too.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've heard the same thing. So I haven't seen anything convincing. I'd need to go there myself, and even then, I'm not sure you could get anything.
Right.
And I honestly think that, I mean, I hate to say it, I think the creator set it up this way so that ultimately you have to have faith. Like it comes down to faith.
Well, you have to have faith for salvation. You don't have to have faith to know that there's a creator. I mean, the scriptures say even the demons believe and they shudder, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to have faith to know there's a God. There's another guy who gives this example. If you've seen a painting, there's a painter. I don't have to have faith, even though I don't know the painter, right? If I see a building, I know there's a builder, right? That doesn't require faith. If I've seen creation, it demands a creator. It doesn't take faith to believe that, to accept that. It's axiomatic. But what takes faith is to believe that the creator cares for you and provided for you. That's what takes faith. And I think, creation speaks of that too, but sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. Go ahead. I was just saying someone earlier, there was a question someone had for everyone earlier. I was trying to find it. I can't. If I find it, I'll go back again. But let's kind of circle back. Let's give some time to everyone. I think we have a couple people here. Frank, you got anything to say? Anything to add to any of this that you heard?
Yeah, like I said, why wouldn't NASA lie about stuff? And could you, Bobby, come up with 100 lies of NASA and list them all and just say, here's 100 reasons to doubt that NASA's telling the truth? And if they lied about one thing, the question would be, why would they lie about one thing? But if you could list 100 things they've lied about, or potentially, you can't prove that it's a lie, but can they prove that it's true? Can they prove that they weren't doing Apollo in studios? Can they prove that, why is the sun, the moon so bright in the sky, and then they get on the moon and it's the color of a dingy rock? Where did all that light go that lights up our moon? If it was that color, how could we even see it from Earth?
Yeah.
Okay. Everything is a lie. But then at some point, like you're talking about, you get to the point where you say, well, why are they lying? Why are they hiding all this stuff? Why are they misleading not just some people? I mean, I grew up believing that. I would love to have been an astronaut and landed on the moon and be a hero and all that. Go look at their press conference. They look like all three of their mothers died the day before.
Yeah.
I mean, these were the heroes of the day. Unbelievable. America has landed on the moon, and these guys come in with a hangdog look, like all their puppy dogs got run over by a semi. And not everything adds up when you realize that there's nothing about it that's true. But why are they telling us all this? Why? What's in it for them? Somewhere, somebody's orchestrating all this, and it comes down to like what's been said. It comes down to a spiritual journey for each individual to wake up and say, we don't understand what God is. We don't understand what eternity is. We can't describe the beginning or the end. All we know is what we've seen with our senses and taken in during our lives. And and some of it was real and some of it was fake and whatever. But you just learn every day and you keep learning and you never stop. And that's what the spiritual journey is about.
Yeah, let me answer this question real quick, or maybe see if one of you guys want to field it real quick. The Brick, who I'm assuming is like a flat Earth or a globe Earth proponent, I should say. Try to say that as nicely as I can. He said, "What's your explanation for the lack of sunlight at our northern hemisphere? If the Earth was flat, then wouldn't the light be even?" Anyone want to field that? Or I will. I'll give one of you guys the opportunity if you want to take it. So again, the question is, I'll put it up on screen. And I'll be happy to take it, but figure maybe one of you guys want to take it. It says, what's your explanation for the lack of sunlight at our northern hemisphere? If the Earth was flat, then wouldn't the light be even?
The only thing, I would say this. First of all, what we've been told is not true about the nature of the universe, the solar system, the Earth, moon, stars, and all that. However, putting it on us to say we have an alternate explanation, that's like saying, okay, we've had absolutely no ability to go out and, bring in all the greatest minds and say, okay, how does flat Earth work? I mean, you've had to fight your way into the sunlight as far as the world is concerned. So to put it on us and say, you've got to explain how flat Earth works. I said, no, first of all, let's get it clear. Globe Earth doesn't work. Okay. It's completely nonsense. Okay. And now we're just trying to figure it out. That's one of the problems I have is the Southern Hemisphere. I can't, if there were really flights from Australia to South America, that would be one thing if they really existed. Every flight from South America to Africa goes through Europe, and they even fly to Houston to go to Africa from Buenos Aires. Look it up. The stops that they make in Doha, and they make stops in Munich, and it's ridiculous. What in the hell? Why don't they just go 10 hours across from Buenos Aires to Cape Town instead of going 14 hours to London? And then turning around and going back down on the globe, down to south, down to Cape Town. They say, well, that's just business. And so you can't, okay, but, to put it on flat Earth and say, you've got to show me and explain everything that works in flat Earth. And then that's where they get you, because now everybody's arguing, well, it can't work that way, or this doesn't sound right, and everything else. That's not the first thing that people need to know is that the globe doesn't work. Okay. And if you start there and you say, we're just learning, what the true nature is without having any assistance from our institutions, from our government, from our education, from our religions. No, we're getting told from the day we were born that the world was a globe, and you can see it every day on TV, and they show you cartoons of the Earth taken from Discover 1 million miles away, right? So
let me share this. I think this will help some of you guys. I think Frank, it might even help you for some questions you had, and I think it'll help the Brick who asked this question. He says, if you want to understand the northern hemisphere, first off, just keep in mind that on a flat Earth, this is the northern hemisphere, is everything inside of this ring. And when you're talking about the northern hemisphere, you're not talking about here. You're talking about up here, right? Is what you're really talking about. So let me show you this. What this presentation is going to show on the bottom is what we know day and light would. This is the actual night and day on a flattened globe, right? So this is an accurate representation. This is what we know that we have to be able to match with our model, right? And then what you're going to see show up above is going to be someone using a hemispherical dome, which would simulate basically our firmament and a water-filled atmosphere, which is what we have, which would act like a lens, and it shows you how light would disperse. So I'm going to play this, and I think this will answer that question for the break. Now, every single one of these patterns, you're going to see him reproduce light inside. No, it's a solid inside, but work. Even if the sun's inside our minute, honestly, but for a fact, a lot of some supposedly multiple layers to the right? It may be the sun and it may be the outsiders. We don't know. But we do know that a hemispherical dome will produce all of light patterns. So this light pattern that we need to be able to create flat Earth, we've done it, and we've proved it. That's why I can make that light around. So we can make it light up. We can make it wrap all the way around. Didn't catch line this, and you'll see here that light is going to wrap all the way around. So if you were in say Antarctica, you'll see that light wrap all the way around. See how this is really small, producing what we saw earlier on there. Like a dead horse, but yeah, absolutely. I don't have any problem with it. I haven't seen anything. There's not an explanation to. You guys still there? Be quiet.
I'm here. I was going to say the same thing.
Was I chopping?
You were choppy, but it came across.
Okay.
I still think we heard every word, I think.
All right.
But yeah, for Brick, if they weren't thinking of that, the difference between sunlight and seeing the sun, as you just explained there, and a lot of people don't think in those.
Yeah,
I think there are just so many truths for the firmament that.
Right. So I got a question, and I have to admit, I have not been spending years doing this. I mean, this has been just over the past few months, okay? But what are we seeing when we see the progression of stars in the sky coming up in the east and setting in the west like the sun does? What are we looking at? If the theory is that it's the lights, that they're lights and they're not really spheres and burning, hydrogen fusion engines that we're looking at. What are we seeing, and how do they go down and come up the next day in the same place they were, with a little bit of variation and all that stuff? I mean, so Bobby, you must have a clear idea of what you think we're looking at.
Yeah, I explained that, and I'm sure I explained that with it's the firmament, right? So you've got two types of lights. You've got the lights that are set in the firmament. So all but what we call the planets, which in the Bible was called the wandering stars, or everything that we don't consider a planet, that's fixed. So when you see the firmament turning, now everyone thinks they're going to look up and see that firmament turning like they imagine looking up from that little map, and they say, well, okay, I'm going to see it go across like that. But perspective, and we have proven this, all you have to do is watch. I could point you to some videos. Perspective gives you your own atmosphere, your own dome of vision, right? And we have some people that are really good with AutoCAD and some other programs like AutoCAD that have proven this. And one of them is a guy by the name of P-Brain. He has some really good ones. I think Eric Dubé has some really similar ones where they show this dome of vision. Some people call it a personal dome of vision. But because our atmosphere makes everything from the ground ramp up and everything from the top ramp down, it creates this little dome of vision that's limited, and it's always going to give us our own little turning dome, if you will. That's going to change in how it turns depending on where you are. I could share these videos right now, but I think even though I pay for like a 1 gig connection at night, it drops down to, I get like 200 megs or 300 megs. There's a problem with my provider. So I don't want it to go choppy, but I can send someone, if you want me to share the links with you, I will. I just have to send them to you later. But P-Brain, just remember P-Brain. But Eric Dubé shows basically the same thing. It's like, I don't know if they worked together or one grabbed it from the other, but I have heard P-Brain said he made his own and he put a lot of time into it. But he, for me, when he explains when he shows the science, how he justifies how he made that dome, it's very sensical. It just makes sense. I wholeheartedly believe it. And there's another video by a guy named Zachary Zabala, Good Times for All. Because what I used to have a problem with was Southern star trails. Like that was a problem for me, because we do observe from I've never seen them myself, but I have no problem believing that we do have Southern star trails. And I couldn't imagine how that would happen until, and Zachary Zabala, and his channel is good, GUDTIMS, the number 4 ALL, Good Tims for All. He used a hemispherical dome, just like the one I just showed. And he made star trails on a piece of paper. He sat it on it, and he turned the dome, or turned the paper, one of the two. And he showed how it created the concentric star trails. But when you looked on the edge of the dome, it created the counter rotate. It created the Southern star trails, and it showed the stars moving around them. And it even showed them condense, because it just, perspective condenses everything to, what's it condense it to? All one little dot. And you even end up with a Southern star, no matter where you are, because of the way perspective works. And it condenses everything to a little dot. Any stars that were rotating at the end of your perspective dome of vision turn into a dot. So you get the Southern star trail. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's perfectly explained. I like to think I have a scientific brain. And when I saw those, those explanations were perfectly justifiable.
So what is your opinion on planets? What are we looking at when we see they talk about the 4 planets, in the inner planets being solid and everything else is gas? Do you look at that with your P1000, and what do you see with that? And
so
what do you think these planets are really made of?
I don't think they're hydrogen or any kind of gas. I think they're luminaries. I think again, and this is where I fall back to the Book of Enoch. I think they call them the hosts of heaven. And they even talk about at one point in the Bible that they joined in on the war on earth. Like, and that's why the elites pray to them and give them names of gods, right? They are worshiped, and they believe that those stars can make their wishes come true. I mean,
days of the week.
Now, some of those stars actually, like Jupiter, you can observe, and Jupiter's not the only one, but you can observe moons going around, what we call moons. You can observe smaller luminaries. For me, they're all luminaries. Everything in the sky, I like to call a luminary. You have the luminaries that are fixed and the luminaries that are wandering, which we call planets. I only acknowledge that they're luminaries. I don't know what they're made of, but I do believe that they're sentient, and I believe that they're powerful. I mean, I believe they're sentient, powerful. They're in the Book of Enoch. I believe they're referred to as the hosts of heaven.
What about the composition of the moon? The statement people make that it's not a place you can go. It's not.
I don't think it's terra firma. I think it's you heard that there was a BBC scientist that came out and said he thought it was made of plasma. And anyone that's not, most people that have been down the road a while have got turned on to Crow 777. Crow 777 had filmed years ago this line go through the moon, and it looked like an old an old Sony CRT monitor that has this line roll through it, and it kind of, you see a distortion go right through the middle from the top down. And he proved that it didn't go through his whole screen because there were stars in the background and whatnot. And he proved that that distortion line only traveled through the moon itself. Well, then it got weirder because when he posted his video on YouTube, other people from around the world reached out to him and said, hey, I recorded that same thing at the same time. I thought it was some type of anomaly with my camera, right? Or my telescope or whatever. So then after he's been doing this for so many years, he's pretty much found the schedule, I mean, not down to the hour or anything, but like to the week or certainly within the month. I don't remember, what he said it was, but he has narrowed it down, and they can now know when to start watching to catch them. And he has caught many of them. Like, I don't know how many, but a lot. And it's not just him, people all over the world. He can tell you when to start watching. You can start watching. And if as long as you're filming the moon, you'll film this. It looks like it's some people call it rebooting. The moon reboots. I know it sounds crazy, but Crow 777 is his channel. And if you see it, you'll be sold.
I didn't realize he had captured multiple ones. And that.
Oh yeah. And not just him. And at the same time, people on other sides of the world, in Germany and other countries, when word got out that he was capturing them, it eventually got back to them, and they had captured the same thing at the same time.
So it gets P900. I'd like to break that out.
Yeah, for sure.
First time I used my P900, I caught a Satelloon going across the moon. First video I took of it, I think it was.
Yeah. Sorry, just trying to read some of these.
Yeah, Frank, I like the idea that I've heard of how the light we see it's not reflection of the sunlight as we know, but it's being charged. It's igniting. I don't want to say particles. I don't know how to phrase it. I don't know how to articulate it, but I can see how that makes sense in my mind.
Yeah,
a lot of the firmament, like I said, there's proofs for the firmament. If there happens to be anybody in this room that's a glober, thinks that the firmament's silly. I mean, you think of thunder, you think of rainbows, what they do for satellites. I mean, the satellites, they're obviously not bouncing that off of some magically floating thing. There's this whole idea of the ionosphere was just like telling us about the Van Allen belt. I don't think the ionosphere or Van Allen belt exists. Those are just their excuses. So yeah, they're bouncing it just off that beautiful dome.
I took 2 videos from recent months of the moon, and the moon's pointing up. I mean, if it was reflecting the sun would be 20 or 30 degrees up in the sky, yet it's setting over on the sunset, obviously going down. And everybody said, and I posted this on Quora, and I swear hundreds of people came in. They said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Of course, the moon is reflecting the sun. How do you think we see it? And they never looked at the point that if it was reflecting the sun, why would the reflection be pointing away from the sun? Wouldn't the reflection be going straight at wherever the sun is? And I'm shocked at how angrily people just said, you're just so full of it, to point something like that out. And only maybe a couple out of hundreds came in and said, you're right, buddy. That doesn't make any sense. And it's the level of deception and the level that it's actually, I believe that the internet, which didn't exist 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we only had flip phones with no cameras. 10 years ago or so, everybody started getting smartphones. We're living in a particular time in history where technology is almost like magic, that we are all of a sudden enabled. For me to talk to you in Houston, and Bobby, wherever you are, I forgot, and I'm north of Dallas, Greg. So, I mean, could we do this 30 years ago? All of us were alive then. Do you remember then? That was the first emails coming out on AOL. No, I mean, the world has changed so much in the past decades. And what's it going to be tomorrow or next week or next month or next year?
Yeah.
And it's exciting to think that the world is ready to wake up, and the world has the technology to wake up, because everybody's got a phone in their hands now, and they can accidentally stumble over the truth, and we can get them to start questioning stuff. And it could happen in a rapid pace if we figure out a way to just break the ice, just get people to stop just believing everything they're told and start using their God-given gray matter, the 3 pounds between their ears. Because it's obvious to people once they start seeing it that there's no end to what you can learn and to the good things that can happen. This world doesn't have to be one of misery and pain and hunger and suffering. That's all intended by the bad guy. Whatever he's up to, he does a little dance every time somebody doubts God, doubts their future, afraid of something, locks their car in the Walmart parking lot. Everything that they see is supposed to scare them. Okay, and if you're fearful, you're not faithful. If you're faithful, you're not fearful. So, yeah, okay, caution, that's okay. Don't drive your car 180 miles an hour on I-35, okay?
So what I get from reading the scripture is that, you have the I'm trying to think of the right way to word these people. I don't want to make them feel ousted or anything, but you have one side of people who think that society is going to wake up. We're going to wake everyone up, and they're going to go and kill off all the, kill off whatever, all the elites that have been doing these bad things to us. But that's not what it says in the Bible. In the Bible, it says, we're going to be beheaded, right? Like the people that kept and what, if you think about it, they have ways of making it look like we're, like, for example, look what they did to Islamists, right? You had 9/11, and then everyone in the world hates Islam. And in fairness, I don't think they did anything, right? So what happened is I hope I don't get, our own GOV attacked us, in my opinion. And they made it look like this group of people's crazy, and we've got to do something about this group of people. So when all they have to do is all it takes is a few false flags by true earthers. And now this is a sickness. And if the sickness isn't addressed, and I think that's how they'll do it. As long as they have as long as they have the higher numbers, if as soon as we start running out of control and gaining steam, then all they have to do is turn this into a sickness, and everyone will be, hey, yeah, we've got to fix this. And
well, one of my memes says that all that we have seen is prophecy being fulfilled, and all that we see right now, all that we have seen has been never mind. I can't remember my own words right. But anyway, basically, all that we've seen, all these prophecies have been fulfilled up to this point, and what we see in the future is prophecy being fulfilled. And so the question is, do we interpret how do you interpret prophecy? And look at it and say, well, what does all this mean? When the end of the book says that there will be a new heaven and a new earth, how does that come about? Is that going to come about by some kind outside of people? Are going to engineer that? Can people? Do you remember the story of Jesus talking to the woman who was about to be stoned, and he says, "Let whoever's not sin, throw the first one." Mm-hmm. Nobody threw a stone, and then he told the woman, "Go and sin no more." Did he tell her that? And it was impossible. According to a lot of logic, they're saying, "Oh, man cannot, he cannot go and sin no more." Or is it? But he told the woman to do that. And this woman, did she go and sin no more? We have no idea, because there was no follow-up to the story. It said that, yeah, she went out and she sinned the next day, or she never sinned again in her life. We have no idea. But he told her to do that. And he's telling everybody to do that. Can we learn from our mistakes? And can we learn how not to sin and not to do the wrong things? And if one person can do it, then everybody can do it. But they're not doing it. I'm not saying that we're anywhere close to that right now, but to say that it's impossible to do that is a completely different thing.
Yeah. Well, to answer one of your questions, one sec, just let me get this out real quick. To answer one of your questions, you said, how are they going to, I think you said something like, how are they going to create this new earth or something like that? But the Bible says it happens by fire, right? Like God said he would never flood the world again. But and then it says, I think it says later on in the Bible that we're going to be cleansed. The earth is going to be cleansed by fire.
Right.
And let me just add to that, Revelation 21, it says that the earth was no more, and neither were the heavens, for there was no place for them. So the new heaven and the new earth comes after what is called the last day. Jesus talks about the last day. That's when the resurrection happens, and that's the judgment day. And I think there's going to be one long day. Right? It's going to be a long day.
And you know what's crazy, and what I love is that we're all brothers here, and we're all looking forward to that day, right? And we all fear that day, just but we're all looking forward to it. And I just love that. I always say if someone's not Christian, they're just not fully baked yet. If they're a true earther and they're not Christian yet, you're eventually going to find that road. And I love it, because I feel like every time I jump in this channel, even though I'm not very good at this, I feel the love and the warmth, and I love it. I really look forward to being here.
Yeah, and let me just say one more thing about the last day, and that is, I don't remember which verse in the Old Testament, but it says, "Woe to you who long for the day of the Lord," the day of the Lord being the last day. He says, "For it is a day of darkness and dread, of gloom, and that is the day of judgment." So just that little note. Can I address the question that was earlier said about why would they lie? Because I hear this a lot.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I think it's quite natural that the founders of NASA had a vision for the future, and it didn't include God. They hate God, and they love the unholy trinity of evolution, gravity, and chance. These guys were the progressives that emerged out of the 1900s that sought to kill unborn children, manage population and population growth. They are reprobates that believe in secret occult knowledge that give them the divine right to rule over everybody else. And I think some of these reprobates know of God Most High, but they hate him. They don't have faith in God. They know there is a God Most High. They hate him, and they cannot tolerate serfs who appeal to the God Most High.
Yes, I believe.
And their power is deception to try to hide God. So why would they lie? That's my answer.
That's it. I wholeheartedly 100% believe with everything you just said. Like that is, over the last few days, a guy on my channel, he said, "Hey man, I don't believe you, but why would they lie?" And my first response was, "Hey man, then just look into it." I said, "Just look into it." And he's like, "No, you tell me why they would lie. It doesn't make any sense." And I said, "You're trying to put the horse before the carriage, or the carriage before the horse." Sorry. And he said, "No, just tell me why they would lie." And I said, "No, I'm not going to tell you. Research it first. It doesn't matter." And the reason I would not give him the answer he was asking for is I've done it in the past. I've had people say, like, they act like they're looking into it. They're like, "This doesn't make any sense. Why would they do this?" And I say, "Well, there's a war raging on that you know nothing about, like a religious war." And they're like, "Oh, dude, you're nuts. I'm out of here." Right? Like, so it's like the moment you let that out, an atheist cannot fathom that. They just cannot fathom that there might be a creator. Oh, we know there's a creator, but they won't even give the consideration to it. Right? Like, that's amazing to me.
Well, I've got an addition to that. Why would they lie so badly? When you look at 9/11, when you look at NASA has untold millions of dollars a day, 66 million, they say. Why don't they get Hollywood to do their lying for them? And they could do these smash up videos that nobody would have any clue that they weren't real. Instead, they get garbage crap that's so obviously fake. Artemis is one of the worst. If you could dig into Artemis, this is just 2 months ago. They have all this stuff at their disposal. They got idiots like Don Pettit gets out there and said, "I go to the moon in a nanosecond, but we destroyed the technology." And you're going, what in the world? Didn't they look under the desks or something? How can all this stuff be so bad? If they were liars, you would think they would be exceptionally good at it.
and I've got the answer to that, I think. So I have a strong opinion on that. If you were to look at the Luciferian and the Freemason, which are one and the same, that all the doctrines of these Scottish Rites, Freemasons, it goes back to a long time. It's all just one facade for one organization, but they share these same doctrines. If I'm using that word right, I might not be, but they believe that they have to tell you that you're actually in their mind, you're choosing to be ignorant. It's a choice you're making, and that is how they absolve themselves from any wrongdoing. So, for example, that's why we have movies like and television shows like I can't remember the actor, but it was a guy and a lady. But they laid out the whole thing of the COV 1D, however you want to code it, so it doesn't get picked up, or why actor not Chris Hadfield has to say, oh, it's just flat gorgeous, right? Or Matthew McConaughey says the world's flat, or this professor from this university of whatever it was, on talking about Zika virus, saying, oh, the world's flat, and they all do it. They all do it to say they told you, right? And that's why there's blatant mistakes. That's why I believe National Geographic has blatant mistakes that you have to make them intentional. Like the helicopter set in the wrong way. Well, if you pay attention, when it shows it going down from the back and going down from the front, there are two different directions. And then they have all that stuff is easy. Like we're talking 101, like a kid with his first year in graphics wouldn't make these mistakes. So I think it's the revelation of the method. And I think they intentionally show you that. And that's how they don't feel. That's why they get to laugh at you later. In the end, they get to go, ha ha, you chose to be ignorant. It was your choice. Yeah. Sorry about being so long-winded on that. But yeah, that's what I believe, Frank, is that they have to tell you that, and that absolves them of any guilt or wrongdoing.
Mm-hmm. Right. We know everything is so compartmentalized. As it's been pointed out, you can have a control room theoretically where they're watching the ship go up to the moon, so to speak.
Right.
Only one person controlling the computer that feeds all those computers has to be in the know, technically. Am I saying that's the case? No. But a lot of people don't understand the compartmentalization. Living here in Houston, I've met people like I have a brother-in-law that for several years was working for a company contracted through NASA to make these things. He's bought and sold into it. Most anybody you find in the Houston area that works for there's an elder at my church. His dad was very involved with NASA, with Apollo and all this stuff. Maybe I dig down deeper. Maybe I'll find out he was a Mason or something. Face value from the man that I know, he is he fears God. He is amazing. I think he's legitimately fooled. I think his dad very well could have been. So where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. And then I noticed Lord so-and-so in the comments said it's for the money. Well, I don't think it's for the money for them. It's because it's so compartmentalized. That's how they have all their players down that pyramid pull in. We'll give you money to do it. We'll give you money. And as we're seeing now, even the top players are willing to give up their multi-billion-dollar corporations for their greater good. They don't care about that money anymore. They have it. Like I used to think when I started saying that stupid term, saying I was atheist when I started college, I thought oil was the root of it, and it's all oil and money. And then I'm like, no, oil is a tool to get money. Money is a tool to control people. Right. But where I think it all goes with the biblical cosmology, with this truth, it all boils down to hiding God, not hiding a God, but the God of the Bible. I refer back to what I was saying earlier about they use Muslims, they use Islam as to make the enemy for a while when they needed it to be. But do they attack that the way they do Christianity? The way they do the Bible? No. So I think it's all to hide God. And something, Bobby, you said on another show, and you read my comment, and we did not agree with each other. I'm from what I've seen in the past, we had shills come in. Can I prove it? But in our activist group that I was an organizer of for years, we had people that were pretty clearly acting the role of shills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Again, can I prove it? No. But if you act it, come on. You're not worth any more than that. I'm not naming names. I'm not even trying to suggest names. But I have no doubt that why would this truth be any different? That, of course, this community is filled with people. But something you had said, Bobby, I think you were suggesting that this is such, or maybe I'm getting it mixed up and somebody else was saying it. This is such a big truth. Why do that? Why? How could you be a shill in this? Because this is going to lead you to God.
Oh yeah. No, I said that.
Yeah, but what I'm seeing, in fact, I'm seeing, as beautiful as it is, as many testimonies as I see, like regularly, of how Christ has used this to bring people into his arms, atheists, agnostics, otherwise. I'm starting to see a bigger push away from that. I've seen it the whole time, but I'm starting to get this energy that's the opposite of that. As much as I see people going towards it, I'm starting to see more of that pushback. There's a channel that I've listened to some. I have mixed opinions. I don't think even says he's a true earther. Quantum of Conscious. I don't even. I tune in on occasion, and something that he had been mentioning is that we talk about predictive programming. I've mentioned that over the years, and something I think that we should consider. I don't know if you've looked into the Mandela effect stuff much.
Oh yeah.
I mean, 100%. I think it's absurd to deny that when you see. And talking about scripture stuff too, like Dose of Reality. He has put together 1,000+ videos. And when it comes to the Lion and the Lamb, for example, and you've got John MacArthur multiple times, and all these people that know the Bible extremely well, like lists this long.
I think I saw Dose of Reality on Flatzoid's Perspective. I think that's where I saw him. I think that's where it was the other day.
Yeah, they've done some stuff together.
Yeah.
But when you start to think at that level of how this reality is fluid to an extent, and I can't explain it, but I don't need to explain it, right? Where I was going back to what Quantum of Conscious was saying was basically, no, there doesn't always have to be predictive programming. It doesn't have to be, it can be possibly, and we have to consider this, life imitating what the humans have done. So maybe things are falling into place out of control. So maybe not everybody is scripting every little line in the movie to match up with what we're going to say 20 years. Look how they predicted that. That could be just this crazy fluid reality kind of conforming, and what we're always going to see is predictive programming. I'm not discounting predictive programming. I certainly believe in that. But
hey, let me share this with you real quick. I'll give it right back to you. 1 second.
Yeah.
First of all, let me say that we can disagree, and you're still my brother in Christ. But never worry about that. There'll be times we disagree.
Certainly.
And you'd be my brother even if you weren't a Christian. Like everyone's my brother if they,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I was gonna say, one of the guys on the channel just recently got into, if you ever see him, his name's Run Boston Bear, but he's been messaging me about Mandela, and I had went down the Mandela effect road, some years back, and it's not a major issue for me, right? Like I'm like, oh, well, it could be happening, it could not. I'm like, it's not. It's that it's something I can't prove. So I'm just like, well, I can't prove it. It's like, yeah, I thought that dude had had a eyepiece, right? There's like lots of examples I could go down. But what I am going to say is I did check out Dose of Reality stuff. I could be wrong about it being Flatzoid's channel, but it seems like that's where I saw it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then if so, it was, because I do watch some flat. I like Flatzoid's Perspective. But there's this lady messaged me the other day. I don't remember her name. I just shared a link, and that's all she does. She has a channel that just does Mandela effect. It's kind of like, that's it. That's all she does. It's called Changing Matrix. But if you're into that, check out her channel. She has a ton of stuff. I just wanted to share that before I forgot. I knew I'd forget.
Changing Matrix.
Yeah. I just shared that link. And let me say one more thing also. One more thing before and Greg, you can take back over, and then Frank, you got something to say? 1 second. Let me spit this out. It seems like we got a lot of Christians in my channel. I don't know how I did that, but I love it. Right. I am Christian. I've said that many times. I am on a religious journey. If you're a Christian and you haven't checked out Kingdom in Context, you're missing out. That's all I want to, you're missing out. I've seen a lot of channels, and this guy's brain is like no brain I've ever seen in my entire life, man. This guy can he can regurgitate. It's like he sees all verses at once. He's like a supercomputer of Christianity. So, and he reads all the Apocrypha and ties the Apocrypha into it, but he'll keep them separate too. He'll say, well, if we include the Apocrypha, And right next to him is one of his good friends, who is Ken Heidelbrecht with Hanging on His Word. So if one of y'all should go out there, just say, hey, Flat Earth and Coffee sent me, just so I kind of get because one day I'd love to have a conversation with that guy. So Sean Griffin and Ken Heidelbrecht. That's it. So Frank, we'll give you a second, then we'll come back to Greg.
Yeah. Okay. Can I finish my thought real quick? Can I tie
Yeah. Go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
Okay. Where I was going with all of that stuff. So the reason I was talking about how you have all these players that aren't knowing what they're doing at NASA, or talking about this fluid reality. I don't necessarily think people in the flat Earth community, they might be big names, have to be intentional shills going against the Word of God. I think that they don't have. I think that the Father of all life could have a hand in manipulating that to happen. So just because somebody's going out against the Bible or saying, I'm not talking about some disagreements in the Bible.
So are you saying you believe in like an unintentional shill? Is that like a concept you believe in? Yeah.
So
okay.
I might suggest, on a personal level, that I wouldn't do here if I was talking to a friend that I knew them well, and I might say certain things that I wouldn't say on here, to where I'm like, hey, I wouldn't go watch this person for that reason, for this reason. Or if you do, keep your mind open to this, or expect this is what you're going to get. But I am seeing more and more of a push against the God of the Bible, and it's troubling me. And I think that's because it's having that effect, that of course it's going to have that counter effect. So again, that's why I brought up all these these compartmentalization, and it doesn't have to be somebody intentionally doing it.
I just don't. So, and I don't know who is or is not, right? Like let's just get that right out there. Like for all I know, person X could absolutely be a shill. I just have a hard time conceptualizing that the government would use flat Earth, because it's the worst thing. Like if you let that out there, like it almost inevitably leads to Christianity. But I guess I never considered from a standpoint of like, if they're anti-Christian and they're pushing flat Earth, that if someone gets into flat Earth with them, maybe they'll be inclined to not look at Christianity. I mean,
there's so much.
I hadn't thought about it
now, and the main names in it, if you look back at the FEC conferences, look who all is involved. There was like one Christian guy involved in the first ones, a different Nathan. He got out of it because it wasn't Christian. You look at the logo. I start looking at that. I'm like, an F, a C, an E, and the C, the way they're put together, the colors of it. Look at all these people are involved. They all talk about the little g God. But I mean, over and over and over, I was seeing this repeated pattern of stuff. And even with this last conference that Jaron and them put on, I don't know if you did it. I paid for it, got some of the swag, and one of them is this cookbook. And they're going to say it's just mockery and laughing. Every little page of that cookbook was symbolism, and let's call it this, let's call it that. I'm like, why do you do that? I don't walk around and flip people off, with my middle finger just for the silliness of how, So I see a repeated pattern of that over and over and over. And I think even if you're not a Christian, why are you pushing these Masonic symbols over and over and over? Where are the people that love and fear God amongst this crowd? Why is it always little g? And they're the ones that are given the top. Am I saying they're all that way? Now, I can say some people are shills. Like that guy, he called himself Glenn. He goes by Rohif or something when he calls in to another show that I've been on. And he's been at this for years. Just like Brenda, you will never change their mind. They will never concede. And I'm sorry, Frank, I keep interrupting you, but let me finish this thought again real quick. That these people drive me crazy. I kind of highlighted it. In here earlier, Pugsy wrote, there's no more debating beliefs. Verifiable FE proof now exists. The arguments are over. Debating is for FE deniers who haven't looked at the proofs themselves. And I respect that you all like to have, some people have come to it from watching how poorly these Globers do it, defending it. Some people are like, oh, now it makes sense. But generally speaking, the information's out there, although it's censored. I personally believe, and this is kind of contradicting myself because I'm talking about them now. I think that guy that called himself Glenn today, we do not need to give them any time. They've proven themselves for years of doing the exact same thing. They will not concede anything. We can't learn anything from them. They waste our time. They are trolls to the greatest extent. You've been very kind to Brenda, and Brenda, just like Glenn, they act nice. It's time to do away with, they're nice, so let's give them time. No, you go argue amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
If you're truly interested, it's there.
And that's why I told him, I said, I just want to let you know, I think you're a controlled opposition, right? Like, that's what I think you are. I think that's what you're here to do. You know, that anyone that's spent any amount of time looking into this knows the truth. It's easy to see if you just put some effort into it. And someone claiming to be that smart should be able to figure it out. So I think they're controlled opposition.
Yeah, I always say it's either you're just a moron or you're a liar. And he's clearly not a moron.
So can I introduce a third category or possibility?
What's that?
So it can be just the bandwagon concept, wanting to be in the in crowd of what the perceived in crowd is. And I'll give you an example of this. And there was I saw this story recently. In 1956, there's this radio guy who, on his nighttime radio show, said, "Hey, everybody go into the bookstore tomorrow and ask for this book." And they made up a name, and it was called I Libertine. Have you heard about that? I Libertine. And he wanted to show how these book reviews and these book promotions that showed up on the New York Times bestselling list was just all by a bunch of snotty, snobs who don't even read these books, and they claim to have all this inside knowledge. So what happened is these thousands of people all over America went into the bookstores over the next few days asking for these books, and it became a story. Hey, this book, I Libertine, and the author, I don't remember who he said the author's name was. It was completely fictional until it ended up, these newspaper articles started showing up about how great this book was. And how there was a professor from a university said he ran into the author in an airport while he was traveling. The author was on the way to, some artsy fartsy place, right? And it was all lies. These people bandwagon because they want to be in the in crowd. And I think that's true. I think that's why it's true as well. There doesn't have to be a conspiracy for much of this stuff, right? There's just people who agree about things. Political leaders, they put people in place not because they get in a private room and say, I want you to run it this way. No, they put the people in place because they believe the same things they believe, and they're going to carry out the same ideals, right? So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. That's that third category. I think that really is just, it doesn't have to be a conspiracy. It doesn't have to be controlled opposition. You just get people of a certain, not a certain, of any philosophical bent, and they're going to promote what they believe, right?
Yeah. Hey, let me say, Frank, you're next. I know we didn't let you talk for a second. I'm sorry about that.
Sorry, Frank.
I do want to say, someone who's kind of a legend to me. If y'all don't know Zachary Zabala, he's Good Times for All, but he's someone who did a lot of science that opened my eyes, right? Like he's one of the people who does science. Like that's what he's known for in the community. He gets out there with Van de Graaff generators. He gets out there. He's like levitating organic material. He's doing all this stuff. So he's out there, like he's got these really, really cool ideas about how to prove the sun and moon are rotating. And I'm out there pretty regularly. It's like, that's where I shared that thing I shared on my channel today. But his name's Zachary Zabala. And Zach, if you want to jump in, I'm going to drop this. I'm going to drop the link. But if not, I'll also drop my email and just hit, if you don't jump in tonight. If you send me your email, I'll let you know when I'm going live again. You can jump in. With that said, Frank, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Okay, well, my journey started with 9/11 and moved on to NASA, then moved on to mass shootings. So many of them are proven frauds. You have to assume tragedies of all kinds have been manufactured for our viewing pleasure. And what's the common thread? Why are they doing all this stuff? And you say, well, it's money and power and control. But then why do they do things like fake airplane crashes and stuff? Why did Boeing fake a crash in the Ethiopian desert of a MAX 8 and then pull all their MAX 8s out of service, costing them many millions of dollars? And what it comes down to, there's one common thread to all this stuff. It's all about lies. It's all about making people believe in a false reality. Okay, and that explains everything to me, that 9/11 was not about the billions of dollars that they stole They stole the gold out from under. They got all the settlements. They saved the money it would take to remove the asbestos, instead turned it into profit in our corrupt court systems. And then we had the wars, and everybody that bought stock in the military industrial complex, they got super rich. And then COVID comes along, and people like Bill Gates makes $200 billion in profit off of his stocks in the pharmaceuticals. And you say, wait a minute, are you trying to tell me that it's all about money and power? And I said, in my opinion, it's all about lies. It's all about getting people to believe that life itself is a lie, that the creator that created them just to be a blob of protoplasm that is born one day and dies the next, and everything in between doesn't mean a damn thing. And that's what I think explains everything that we're seeing. It explains why they would lie about flat Earth. Why would they lie about, everything they've lied about? Many of it, there's nothing that even seemed to be gained by some of the stuff that they do. Why show us a mass shooting of the Joker in the guy that dressed up as the Joker in the shooting in Aurora, Colorado movie theater? They leaked out one picture that tells you that it's totally fake. What? The crime scene. Why do you never see the crime scenes in these shootings? Okay, the crime scene, if somebody went in there and emptied 2 magazines of 100-round bullets into a theater and killed 12 people and wounded 58 or whatever the number was, they show a crime scene with no blood and no bullet holes. It's just a bunch of theater seats with a few holes poked in it. And you say, okay, they're lying about this, but why would they make up a story like that, which is obviously not true? Why would they show you clues even at all if they were faking it? Why do they leak certain things that they don't have to? Why did they show so many videos on 9/11 of fake planes that pass right through the walls of buildings and just go right inside, and then you see an explosion? And when you go look at them frame by frame, it's so obviously fake. And you can show it to people and they get it, and people can be converted, at least on the 9/11 story. They may not believe you when you tell them the moon landing was fake right away, but you get people waking up to the fact that things can be lied about. There's one of my favorite memes is about the Apollo landing and why people resist so much when you tell them that the Apollo landings were fake. And it's not because it's such a big deal to them if they were fake or not. It's because you are telling them that the authority that they have believed in, the institutions of government, of media, of education, of science, have all been telling them a bunch of bullshit all these years, okay, and stood by that life now for over 50 years. They've stood by it. And even when you turn on the TV today, you'll see occasional references to the moon landing, or you'll see a commercial with a guy walking on the moon and hitting a golf club or something like that. And it's all reinforced. And what's the point of it all? To make people not believe in the truth, which is we were created. This world was created for us, and we were created for this world. And we have a glorious future if we can just stop all this nonsense and get everybody on the same page, get everybody pulling together, doing what needs to be done, correcting all the problems that are out there, because they're out there. According to our reality, we're being told that 1/3 of the people on this planet go to bed hungry at night. Yet we pay corporations billions of dollars a year not to grow food. What kind of management is that for the human race? So, there's all this contradictory stuff. And it all explained by one thing, of the war between good and evil. And we're going to win. Why? Because we're on the right side. The Balrog against what's his name? Who was the wizard? Gandalf. Okay, Gandalf's fighting the Balrog. What was the Balrog's biggest disadvantage? He was on the wrong side. He had to lose, because the right side's going to win. And that it's inevitable. And you watch people wake up one by one, 10 by 10, 100 by 100, 1,000 by 1,000. Every day people are waking up to the truth because the truth is real. Facebook censors the truth. They talk about politics on Facebook. Forget that. They censor the truth. They don't want the truth to get out. And why, so why don't they just let the truth police itself? Because if the truth is the truth and the lie is the lie, why not just let the truth people beat the crap out of the people telling the lies? Why rely on Facebook to determine what's true and what's not? Well, it's all meant to just confuse and keep people in the dark like a bunch of mushrooms. And that's why everything you see, every topic, Bobby, everything you've looked into, Greg, everything you've looked into, has come down to that. They want you to believe a lie, and the truth is something else. And it doesn't really matter if it's a big thing or a small thing. We don't know what's true. We're told that Gabby Petito was murdered by her boyfriend, and that story gobbled up news cycles every day for months. Okay, was it true? We don't know. But even if it was or it wasn't, they are manipulating people's minds and just saying, okay, we're not going to talk about things that are really important, like, what's the nature of reality and what's the nature of the human race and what's the future and what are the solutions? How many times have you seen a politician really present solutions to problems instead of just bitching and moaning about the other side? That's what our politicians come down to. Fox News, I believe, was actually rooting for Biden to win because it's much more fun to attack the other side than to defend your own side. So they were saying, "Come on, Joe, you gotta beat Trump, and when you beat Trump, then we're gonna jump on you like it's stink on shit." Okay, and that's what they've done. And it's all intentional mismanagement. They couldn't be that stupid. These are not stupid people. They are figuring out ways to screw up. And as long as they keep doing it, the challenge remains for the good people of this world to rise up and just put them in their place and say, we don't have anything against you personally, but you gotta resign. You gotta get out of here. Get out of the way. Let us take over. Let us start managing this planet the way God, I believe, wanted the destiny of man to be.
And Frank, don't forget that the battle's already been won. You said the good will win.
That's right.
Rejoice in that.
It's just an inevitability, but I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I hate to say that. That's just what I believe.
How much? Yeah, that's true. That's true. It could be true. It could get worse. It could get better. Actually, when you talk about, expectations, there's always, the one expectation that is never true is it's always going to remain exactly the same. Something's going to happen. Okay, it's going to get worse or it's going to get better. But in the end, what is the result? That's the thing.
I'm curious how many people. Someone sent me a video the other day, and it was a well-made video that made a strong argument. And I want to get your all's video on it. Someone sent me they're a Christian, and they sent me a video about basically stating that Jesus already had his millennial reign, and we're living after that time. Has anyone just hit me up if you've heard that or seen that video? It was actually a pretty do I believe it? No, I don't believe that, but it was pretty. I mean, it was well worded. Was it
a female narrator?
I don't think so.
There was a series, if I recall, maybe a couple or a few, and they were going to be coming out with another one, and it caught my eye a year and a half ago or something, and I was expecting another one, and a believer friend of mine who knows the word a lot better than I do, I brought it up to him. I was like, check this out, because
it might have been. I think her name is Chris. Here it is. I'll share the video. Look, I think it. Wait a minute. Let me see. No, it's not.
It's talking about the buildings and saying, look at all this beautiful structure. So they were able to create beautiful things during that time. And was she talking about the saints?
Well, she was saying, I've got to find
She
it.
was trying to-
I've got to find
She
it.
was explaining like this is where the saints came from, and
Yeah, this is called preterism, and there's different views on preterism. There's partial
well,
preterism and there's full preterism.
see, Law, you're choppy.
Yeah, you're really
Preterism,
choppy. Yeah, I see. It's called preterism. It's interesting, and I'm not saying, look, I don't subscribe to it, guys, but it was. I mean, it was. What the heck? It was interesting. I'll say that. It was very interesting.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Am I coming through better?
There you go. Yeah, much better.
Yeah, this is called preterism. There's partial preterism, and then there's full preterism. Full preterism says basically all the prophecies of the scripture have come to fulfillment except for right. So preterism is really also partial in a way, and then there's partial preterism, and I kind of fall a little bit in that camp, and that is that there are things that people are looking for that have already been fulfilled in the past. Like, for example, when Jesus said, says to the high priest, he says, "You will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds," right? Well, how is that possible if that man is already dead, right? And we don't know that Jesus came in the clouds. And Jesus also foretold the destruction of the temple. So when you consider that coming on the clouds language is throughout the Old Testament, it is a phrase of judgment. That is one of those scriptures that have been fulfilled. Yes, that Caiaphas, the high priest, did see the Son of Man coming on the clouds. He saw the judgment that Jesus predicted on Jerusalem, where not one stone was left on another, and every stone was thrown down to the ground. AD 70.
Yes.
And that's a fact.
Okay. Let me share one thing with you, Bobby. I don't know if you've looked into it, but have you ever looked into the 1893 Chicago World's Fair?
Yes. Yes. Someone sent me something on that, and all the technology they had at that. It was crazy, right? It was, I can't remember.
The story is insane. Okay. Yeah. According to the story, they decided in 1890 to have the World's Fair. They called it the Columbian Exposition. 400 years or whatever after Columbus, right? And they decided they were going to have it. They started designing it in January of 1891. 1 month later, they started construction on the first buildings. They built 200 buildings, massive buildings, and they've got pictures of them, photographs. They had Tesla there, lit the whole thing up with electricity. According to the official story in Wikipedia, they had 27 million. They opened in March of 1893, building these 200 massive buildings, and not just buildings, but landscapes, gondolas like Venice, a lagoon that they created in the swampland. And then they went and, had 6 months of expositions and 27 million visitors, right? Then they shut it down, tore down everything except for 2 buildings that still exist. And they did this all. There's no sign of any. Where did these people stay? It was an hour's buggy ride. They didn't have buses and trains, or whatever, but they had a 2-hour buggy ride from Chicago to get to this place with no hotels or anything. All of this is all like, what in the world really happened? None of it could be real. We couldn't build one of those buildings in 2 years, much less 200 of them. And they said in the Wikipedia, it says they were temporary, but they've got pictures inside. There's nothing temporary about them. They were full of expositions and stuff from all around the world, all the current technology. So what we're faced with is a history that has been rewritten for us somehow to say that, this is, according to the history that we've been told, none of this is possible. And yet it exists side by side with the history, and this is only one World's Fair. They had one in 1904 in St. Louis. They had the Paris. Remember, the Eiffel Tower was erected in 1887. And it was part of the Paris World's Fair that year. And that was probably maybe the kickoff. I don't know. But they've had many of these World's Fairs, and they make no sense at all. And so I looked at the Civil War photographs. You've seen pictures of Civil War photographs. And photography was just invented like 15 years before. And according to the official Wikipedia, you had to sit still for 30 seconds to get a picture with no blur in it, because you had to be absolutely still while the guy took an exposure. And yet we've got all these crystal clear photographs from that day. Are they real? Where the heck did they come from? How did they have so many good I mean, these are like things that you would think that they were all black and white mostly. They didn't have color, but good grief, you know, they're good quality. And the pictures from 1893 are just magnificently detailed. You know, it's not like they're blurry images. So, you know, the question becomes, how much of our history is even real at all? You know, or is there multiple histories that we're looking at that we, you know, what is the nature of our reality? Because we inherited a world when we were born that we were just told about. We didn't experience the 1890s or the World War II or any of this stuff. You know, we just got it from our history books. How much can we even trust the history that we've been told?
Yeah, I don't believe history at all. Like, honestly, I don't believe the narrative behind World War II. I don't believe the history. I don't believe any of the stuff. I'm a huge, if you haven't seen, I'm trying to think of the names of these documentaries. One of them is called Europa, The Last Battle, and one of them is called Hellstorm. I'm not saying they're true, but I guarantee, and I've said this many times, I know but it's my belief. It's that if Japan had won the war and Germany had won the war, you can guarantee we would have been the ones that did all the atrocities, right? There would be stories about us, and there would be people that would have been tried, and you know, the history is written by the winners. So to believe any of that, and I listen to stories. The interesting about those documentaries, and I have others, but those are the two big ones. But there's plenty of documentaries where they tell a completely different story, right? Like, I mean, just nowhere near the mainstream narrative. And you know, you could say, well, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but it may not be. It also may be the complete opposite. You just don't know.
While it's on my mind, you mentioning documentaries, back in the day, there was one of my all-time favorites related to World War II. And unfortunately, I haven't looked for it in a while. It's pretty much disappeared. I think it was about 3 hours, but if you haven't seen it, if you could find it, it's titled 1/3 of the Hollow, fill in the blank. And it starts with him going into a library at a university, going into their books, and it's just using exactly their message that they used for their trials and everything else. There's not really conjecture in it. It'll blow your mind. And I don't think anybody can watch that in its entirety and come to any other conclusion than the vast majority of what they focus on the most is just total nonsense. You might find some parts out there. I don't know. Like I said, it's been a while since I've looked. I think, again, the total was 3 hours. Another video I used to recommend, although there's differences of opinions on it because the guy on air faked his own death, but he went by Alexander. What was his name? He had two different names. This was No Plane stuff. Colonel Alexander, and I can't remember his other name now, but it was something, The Great American Psy Opera was the name of it, and it was a No Planes movie. And you might have some difference of opinions of parts, but I thought that it was just so well done, so well produced. There were maybe 9 parts. One of them I never could find. Maybe he never finished it, which was odd because it was like a number 7 or something. But he goes and he goes to Purdue University because they were one of the ones that recreated some laughable CGI of the plane going in, explaining how that happened. He went in and questioned them on that. I think he talked to Richard Gage and stuff. But you mentioning documentaries, that was on my mind. I had to bring those up. If both of those, I think, are great. And the reason I like those so much, and another reason besides it bringing so many people towards our creator that I like about the True Earth, is that all 3 of those messages, especially True Earth, destroy any faith in your government, in the media, even to where you start questioning history. And where that comes into play that some might not catch on to is think what we just went through these last few years. when you have that kind of a mindset, that can literally save lives. I'm not talking about the savior. I'm talking about literally save lives from not being so foolish into doing something like that. Even helping keep you healthy, but not doing something like that. And it's that mindset that leads to so much more. So people say, why the lie? The main reason is what they're hiding, who's right up there. And then also because they know the potential of what it has for on so many levels. It just shatters their entire.
Absolutely. And think about this. If the official history is written right now of what's happened in our lifetime, how much of it do we know is absolutely false? If this is false, then how much of all the history doesn't make any sense? When I grew up, the official story was that the Egyptians and Babylonians started all the civilization. But in the last few years, you go out and look at what they're finding out there and telling you all these impossible works of majestic stuff as being discovered. How can they discover stuff that's been around? I mean, like in Turkey and in Peru, I just watch. I mean, it's crazy as heck what's in Peru. My wife is from Peru, so we watch that stuff. How do they take 20-ton stones and fit them together better than anybody could, with no mortar in between to fill in the gaps or anything? They cut these stones, somehow put them in place, fit them together like that, 20 tons, and they don't even have horses and wheels.
Well, if you haven't seen this, that's the thing with
how did they do it? We don't have a clue. And yet this is obviously been done. They did it somehow. You know,
that whole discussion, though, and not that I'm suggesting we need to look for others for truth that we can dig on our own, but the people that are putting a lot of research into everything related to what you're talking about, there's a lot of infighting. There's a whole lot of differences of opinions. And there's a lot of stuff when I first became aware of some of that several years back that I admit, even though all these years, and I feel like I'm less resistant to being fooled, although no, I always will be. Every once in a while, something hits me big, and for a moment, I'm bought into it. I'm not bought into it to where I'm telling the whole world, but enough to where it's convinced me more than I should have let it at the beginning. Yeah. And then you start to see a lot of that mud flood related analysis and all, like you're talking about these stones. And I'm not ruling out the possibility of those, but you see a lot of the studies that people are showing that, well, and I can't remember what they call it, where it looks like it's that way, but it's not. It was poured, right? They would have a frame and poured it outer side, and that's where it looks like these perfect seams.
Right.
So I've seen a lot of explanations for stuff that I thought was unexplainable. And when I first learned about it years ago on a different level, for a brief moment, I was entertaining that ancient aliens nonsense. It was like, well, maybe not that, but something along those lines. I was like, well, somebody who humans can't do this. But then I see some researchers that are showing how, well, we actually can do some of it. That doesn't mean we can tackle all of it, but it is unfortunate that there's so much infighting within that community. There's so many differences of opinions. But yeah, definitely, Frank, we've been lied to about everything. Those Civil War photos that I've seen when they analyze that stuff, it's laughable. And it's crazy to think that, yeah, we really don't have a history beyond. I mean, I remember doing a family tree as a child, and I got it to my great-grandparents, maybe?
Well, history written right now would tell you that they launched Artemis and they went around the moon and they put a JWST up there and to replace the Hubble, but the Hubble still works, by the way, of course. And that and that they went to the moon in 1969. I mean, we know all that's a lie. And we lived through that. We saw 9/11. They told us was 19 hijackers flying airliners after learning how to fly on a Cessna.
Yeah, we got a super chat here. So Claptrapism said, do astronauts follow Christianity? I would say absolutely not. No, they've shown that they're Freemasons and they follow Luciferianism. So, but I'll let some other people weigh in. Like, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I know, like, even John MacArthur, my friend told me one of them, maybe an elder or deacon or somebody in his church, is supposedly not that that's saying anything. People have differences of opinions of him, but that's such a prominent church of a pastor that's very, very well known. And usually that's a bad thing. I think he's got a lot of great things to say. He's not a flat earther. But yeah, so you'll see them in these high positions playing it up like they are. And of course, they all act like it. I was out shooting a video one day at this guy doing an interview at this dentist house, and he does, when big stars come through Houston, big rock stars and others. So he had a room just filled with photos of him with all these people. If they need some dental work when they're on tour, a lot of them will come see him. And he was sitting there before I left. He lives out near NASA, and he was playing for me, a recording. And anyway, this guy was going on telling me he was a Christian and how he and his wife volunteer at this church. And this wasn't necessarily an astronaut, but he played a voicemail from his friend, the astronaut, when he called and left him a voicemail from the ISS. So I kind of left there because that wasn't actually an astronaut himself. It was an astronaut calling this alleged Christian.
Right.
Well, I love the way, the ISS is the outside shell of all of that ISS is 1/10 of an inch of aluminum to save weight.
That's right.
So do they say that's what it is for the ISS? I mean, I know for the
ISS is 1/10 of
too.
1/10 of an inch.
1/10
of an inch. Yeah, that's correct.
A meteorite the size of a pea could strike that thing and kill everybody inside because they'd have no way to stop the air from getting out. Okay, they actually have a video of this clown on the ISS. Which one was it? It might have been the guy that plays the guitar or whatever. But
yeah, Chris Hadfield.
He put duct tape over a hole on the ISS because there was he got a puncture in it.
Well, he used his finger first, right, and then he used the duct tape. We got a $5 super chat, guys. I got to answer this. What about a tombstone with a Bible verse? Okay, let me give you my thoughts on that. So if Werner von Braun came from Germany, then you have one option, right? You don't have much choice. Basically, they've got you by the testicles, right? So you either play ball with them or you don't, right? And most people would play ball, but in the end, I believe he tried to leave a clue, right? He said, and this guy is reported as having spilled the beans with his caretaker about Project Bluebeam. So if you look at that, if you're going to give any credence to, well, it's hard to dispute the tombstone. I mean, people have taken photos of it all around the world. So yeah, he did put that up there, and he also confided in his, so he went against NASA, right? And the guy who went against NASA at the end of his life shared that he was a Christian. Yeah. I mean, I think I've said this before and I'll say it again. Any one of us can be silenced. If you think you can't, you're dead wrong. Like if they set their sights on you, they can silence you.
But Bobby, you're suggesting that Germany and the US were two factions fighting against each other. We've had the world government since prior to that.
There
were two players. He was happy to do it. He was part of the club, in my opinion. That's how I see it. And I see putting it on the tombstone. You say, I mean, we've heard, what was it? One of those flights to NASA, and they're reading from Genesis, was it? When they're up and allegedly in this craft reading from that. I think they do that a lot to mock us.
It could be, yeah. It could be mockery. I'll agree with you on that.
Always for speculation on all that, right?
It could be mockery.
I certainly don't. I have a very tough time, though I'm not saying that Christ wouldn't allow for them to repent and be believers. I have a tough time imagining anybody that goes to the depths of even some of these celebrities would ever even consider doing a flip-flop. I've never seen any evidence of that. Anytime I've seen it suggested that so-and-so celebrity, rock star, whatever, has now following Christ.
What about like oh my gosh, who was the first astronaut to step on the moon? Neil Armstrong, right? So what about Neil Armstrong? He only gave like one interview. I mean, and he became like a raging alcoholic. That's the rumor, right? Like, doesn't it seem like he was kind of repenting? It kind of so here's a potentiality, the way I see it. Early on, from what I understand in the 60s, there was 15 astronauts that died in really. So here they are starting at this program, and they're selecting people who they think will keep their mouths shut. And people start talking internally like, hey, this isn't right. How are we going to let some people know? And because how do 15 astronauts die, right? In 10 years or less, how does that happen? And as soon as Gus Grissom said the whole thing, now again, Well, as soon as he says this thing about the lemon, right? Like, we can't talk between towers. How's this thing gonna fly? Hangs a lemon on it. Him, Ed White, and Chafee burn up. And I think that, so look at the next group that goes up. Now you got Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong and the other one, well, I can't remember who the other one was, but those three go up. It's very possible that they didn't have a choice, right? They did not look, if they had the only reason that I subscribe to that is that interview, right? They didn't seem like, people enjoying doing that. I think these Satanists or whatever you want to call them, right? I think they enjoyed a lot. I think they look at the ones, look at the ones lying about the Mars landings and all these they're up there just giggling and they're loving. It seems like they kind of got forced into this and they saw what would happen if they didn't go along with it. Like maybe they thought they were going to go to the moon, maybe. And at the last second, they're like, listen, you guys are going to fly over here. You're going to stay there for a little bit. We're going to bring you back and you're going to be really happy. It could have went down like that. It very well could have. So
what if this, though? What if what Shakespeare said when he said all men are actors in a play, and that's what we're looking at, and that these people are actors and they're acting their roles.
I believe that.
What if that's the most profound statement ever by a person? Because if they are all acting, then they're playing their roles, and maybe they even know that that's what they're doing, and maybe that it's all for our viewing pleasure, that we are seeing a world that's being presented as one great big play. You can't say that prove that I'm wrong. You can believe certainly that I'm wrong, but what if these guys are doing this knowingly, that they know that they're lying, but their lies are serving a purpose? That remember Satan. What was the great contradiction in the creation story? That God would create a world and then Satan is a fallen angel. How can God create an angel that could fall? When you look at the book of Job, doesn't that contradict the idea that Satan is against God? Or is Satan just doing the will of God to make us, what would freedom of choice even mean? How would it mean a thing if there was no way to choose the wrong thing? Where does your blood come from? Your ancestry? Why are you woken up and not all 8 billion other people?
Yeah.
How did you get where you are right now?
I kind of have this thought process, like we set all this in motion, like, Adam and Eve, right? Like they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and that's when evil had to exist. Like you can't have knowledge of.
Where'd the tree come from?
Oh, that was God. That was God put it there.
And why did he put it there?
To give us free will.
Right.
I think it was to give us free will, right? Like
right.
You could either live we could have chose, like, I kind of think like it, I think that physically we were inferior to angels, but we were given a choice angels weren't given. Like that's my own little theory, right? And I think that Lucifer and his angels were jealous about that. 1/3 of the angels got jealous that God kind of loved us more and made us more special than him. And they tempted us, and we made that choice. But God said, I think he did set all this in motion. He kind of gave us a choice, right?
That's just it. He gave us the ability to reason with our brains, to discern the difference between right, good, and evil. The thing is, you look at people and you look at the problems of the world, the greed, the hunger, the pain and suffering, the intentional, the power structure we have, where a few at the top are only there because they can manipulate the many at the bottom. And
how would we know evil without experiencing evil? To give us that knowledge, to give us the knowledge of good and evil, he'd have to create a world. You'd have to loose evil ones and say, because you'd have the same question. Why is Satan even here if he could blink him off? Well, we ate from the tree of good and evil, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We made that choice. We wanted that knowledge. We wanted to be as gods and know the difference. And to do that, you have to suffer, right? So
Right.
is there great evil going on in this world? I believe so. I believe there is, and could God stop it in the blink of an eye? But then we wouldn't have gotten our choice. And in the end, even though this is our reality, from the mind of God, it's sort of like a computer game. It's like, yeah, it hurts, but we're not really dying. But you're making choices. You're making real choices that can result in whether you live or die. But I think that what happens here is I like how Witz had said it. I believe the same thing. He said the same thing. We're kind of choosing if we want to be blinked out or if we want to continue living. I think atheists just don't want to live. Like they choose not to have a God. They choose not to consider a God. They're just like, it didn't hurt before I was here. It won't hurt when I'm gone. And I like that. And I'm just going to live free or die. My thought on it.
So we are given a choice, and can you be enlightened to the point where you can discard all the bad choices and just stick to the goal? But somebody I was talking about, there's people I've come into contact with lately who are into revitalizing South Dallas, which is almost entirely black, very blighted, drug use, unemployment, homelessness, and all that. They're into revitalizing that. And we were talking, and he said it's an analogy to the Wizard of Oz. Follow the yellow brick road. That is the path that leads you home. Okay, that is the path of truth. And if you stray from it, you get in trouble with all those flying monkeys and all that other stuff, and all the uncertainty and doubt about what's going to happen. But there is a path for those that have gotten to the point where you can discard the stuff that's not true, because you've been enlightened to the point where lies, just as soon as they start flapping their lips on CNN or Fox, you know they're lying. As soon as their lips start moving, you know it's going to be something untrue, because that's what you've determined. Everything else they've done up to that point was not true. And the only thing they'll tell you the truth about is, something that's irrelevant, like somebody, is playing putt-putt out in front of their studio or something, but when it comes down to anything important, they're going to only tell you something if it makes you upset, if it makes you doubtful, if somebody got murdered, we've got fentanyl deaths, supposedly. I don't know that fentanyl's killing people. I've been told that over and over every day on Fox News. I watch the news. People say I don't watch the news. I say I watch the news because I want to know what they're saying. I want to know what they're telling people, because I come in contact all the time with people who get their entire notion of reality from the TV set, okay, from the movies they watch. It's not just the news; it's the entertainment industry. It's the TV shows. How many TV shows are based on people? I walk in the room, my wife is watching TV. And I say, did somebody die? And she'll nod her head. Okay, that's all I need to know. It's about somebody getting murdered. Every show, every cop show, it's always somebody murdered. No, sometimes that's not enough. They got to kill 10 people. They got to kill 5 in a row. They're serial killers. They're using unusual methods. They're doing horrible things. One of the worst shows ever was Criminal Minds, if you ever watched that. Right? So it's all poison put into the people's brains to make them doubt their creator.
I just want to say claptrapism has dropped some gravy on me tonight. And here's a concept to think about. This is just I don't, how most of the world, 90% of people just, I don't know, I'm making up a number, but I wouldn't doubt if it was 9 out of 10. They're out there watching Kanye, and they're watching all these wealthy and famous people. They're watching their YouTubes and their Instagrams and whatnot. But I'll bet you they don't watch each other. I bet they watch regular people, right? Because that's not exciting for them. They know it's all fake. Those people don't have struggles. When you live a life of luxury like that, right? Like some crazy life of luxury, and you're like Kanye or Donald Trump or something like that. I bet if you do go on the computer, you go on YouTube or you go on Instagram one night when you're bored and you're laying in bed, I'll guarantee it, they watch normal people's channels. Like how weird would that be if we had this is Keanu Reeves actually going by claptrapism, and he's out there dropping gravy on me and we're answering his questions, just a little.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun, right? I bet it happens, right? I bet that does happen, right? Like they go out there with little fictitious names and interact with.
Yeah. A quote from Jim Carrey that really blew me away. He said he wished that everybody could be rich and famous and have everything they ever wanted, so that they would know that that's not the answer.
Yeah. I personally don't think these people that come into this are normal people, right? Like this is just my personal belief. I don't believe that Jim Carrey or Matthew McConaughey, I don't believe the stories like they were just normal people. I believe they're still, it's just my own little belief system, but they were always going to have that life. They're of a certain bloodline.
Yeah,
and it, like Jack Black just happens to be the daughter of some lady who invented this stuff for NASA. And it's always the same, right? As you start looking into their histories, it's bloodlines, and they're given these, they have these, we're serfs, and they have kingship, and that's just how it is on this earth.
Yeah. And you bring into it the whole transvestigation stuff and that angle, and you look at all these political leaders of many decades ago, and you start to look at them, you're like, wait, is that first lady there? This Michael that we just had in the office not long ago was not the first of those, it doesn't appear. So that's another sign for me that these aren't people that just fell into place somehow, that they're vetted in, that these people were, their sex was even switched, given hormones and everything else from birth. And I wouldn't be surprised maybe if some people that played that role, because they're so bought into that system, then might be allowed, like these days might be allowed into it. Maybe somebody who had, okay, we raised our little boy as a girl from day one, and we're doing all this stuff. We're going to your meetings. We're part of your society. Then I think they might have a door in. Not that I think it takes that.
Well, and it's just like Elon. It's just like Elon Musk. Nobody ever heard of his parents. Like just because you haven't heard of their parents, and you only know who his parents are now because of he's the richest man in the world, right? But if he had just been like, like nobody knows who Jim Carrey's parents are. Nobody knows who, Matthew, whoever, whatever person you want to bring up. But I mean, I'd be willing to bet their parents, this is generational. I think. I don't think that I don't think that you or I or Frank or anyone in here can go be a Hollywood actor. I don't think it happens like that.
I agree.
Just what I believe. We're at 3 hours, guys. My wife's been on me. I got to take her and buy her some piece of furniture. So
I thought this was 24/7, Bob.
Not yet. We're working on it. If Claptrap isn't.
By the way, thank you for posting that Freemasonry video that you had led me to a few streams back with that one guy talking for a number of hours.
Wasn't that phenomenal? That was you're talking about like the 5 hour one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one.
There was some new information. Most of it is stuff that I was aware of, but it was just a really well compiled, and it was nice to see it that way. And
same here.
Brother-in-law's brother who sent me a picture of the 32nd level stuff and his ring. I said, I'm guessing it was his dad's. I was like, is that yours? He's like, not yet. And so I sent him a link to that. He's offshore on a rig until a couple days, but he said he'd watch it. But no, it's a powerful presentation. It takes a long time, but it's good. So thank you again for sending that. Letting us know.
Yeah. Well, that was the inspiration. I did one called Who Are They? It's a similar video. It's a lot shorter, but it's basically the same. It's similar. Yeah. But yeah, that was the inspiration. And I just thought I enjoyed every minute of his video. It was 5 hours long, but I watched it like it was 10 minutes, right? It was great. And yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Yeah. You guys are welcome. Tomorrow night, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do 6 p.m. EST.
Okay, I will be with you anytime you'll have me on, buddy, because you're just scratching the surface of all that there is to know. And we can never learn everything because more stuff is being created every day. So,
yeah, as long as
it's amazing how complex and yet how straightforward life is when you start digging into it. And the deeper you get, the more quickly it comes to you. It's no longer so hard to grasp concepts and coming from every different direction. So I love your show, and I've known you now for all of 3 days. Okay, I saw you on Saturday, and now it's Tuesday.
Feel like longtime friends already.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, I've known you forever, buddy. That's 3 days can be a forever in somebody's universe, right?
Yeah.
Well, nice to
yeah.
meet
Well,
you guys. Thank you so much for having us on, Bobby.
Greg,
Yeah.
you're priceless too, buddy. You're
You
priceless.
too. I
well,
appreciate
and it might just be us tomorrow. Like most people don't like coming on, honestly. Like the whole point of this is that I want people to normalize talking about it. Like there's, I talk about it freely on my Facebook. I'm just like, I'm going to make it normal. I don't care. I'm like, it's not crazy. It's actually sane. It's very sane. Like the smartest people.
Crazy, whatever
Yeah.
that is.
The science has never settled. This is just like the days of, back in Grecian times and Roman times when they met in a court and they argued about cosmology, and nobody's been there, right? There's been a handful of people who've supposedly went outside of that, above low Earth orbit, and I don't believe one of them. So,
Well,
Bobby, I would recommend you. Maybe it's silly to talk about to pray over that, and I just feel so convicted that we need to ignore people like that guy Glenn and Brenda. They have nothing positive. They will never, ever concede. They've both been at it for many years.
They consider
I could see you getting angered by it. It's one thing to have somebody with real questions. It's one thing to really, but when you bring people, we all get drains our souls. I was
embarrassed. I was embarrassed because he did make me angry. He did, and it's like, man,
people like that consider it a victory if they just waste your time.
Yeah,
that's how I feel. Yeah, and I'm just like, why are you here? Just go somewhere else, man.
Brenda's the same way. She's nice, but the exact same results.
Yeah.
It'll get us nowhere. Anyway, thank you again.
Yeah. Well, I posted that question before, and I got some people said, no, you need to make it, you need to. And I'm like, but I've told people I don't like to debate. I'm honestly not a debater. I'm not. My memory's foggy. I'm 50 years old, and that happens. You're 49. Your memory gets foggy. It's hard to remember names, dates. Yeah. It's like I don't want to debate anyone. We got Witsit. We got Witsit for that.
Bobby, how long is the Saturn rocket?
Right. No, it's tall. It's all I can tell you. It's real tall.
That's what it comes down to, So listen, just preach and teach. Forget the debate stuff. The debates are over. Preach and teach, Bobby.
Yeah. Well, why would I when as long as we have Austin, we're good. We just need to keep him alive and we're all right. He's got the science end covered. I'm good with that. Right. Right. There's sharper people out there than me for that, but, cool, guys. Hopefully great. You're all welcome back tomorrow night. Come back on. I enjoyed everyone's conversation and company.
We can keep it under 3 hours again tomorrow night. Okay?
And thank your wife for letting us keep you so long.
Yeah, she won't mind you all. But Claptrapism bought dinner for us tonight, so she'll be okay with that. And Claptrapism, you're welcome back too. And I hope you have more questions tomorrow night. That'd be great.
Aren't you Eastern time, Bobby?
I'm EST. Yeah, 6 p.m. EST. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm Central, and Greg's obviously Central, so that's fine with me. It's 8 o'clock. It's past my bedtime. I'm 72 years old.
Well, Frank, you got to fix your clock back there.
Huh?
Yeah. You got to fix your clock on the wall back there. It's 4 o'clock over there. No, is that? No, I'm reading it backwards. It's flipped. That's right.
Okay.
Some reason cameras are flipped. I don't understand why. You're seeing that's 8 o'clock, and
that's right. That's right.
So anyway, well,
we always see the reverse. We would love that. We see the reverse image of each other all the time.
Buddy. Much of life is an illusion.
Yeah.
All right. You guys have a good night. Thanks everyone who came in. Until next time, take care.
Thank you.
Okay, Bobby, you take it easy. Great to you.